Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 11 o'clock. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of agenda. There are a few amendments. I will entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of amending the agenda? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I have an amendment to add the golf cart purchase under purchase request. Received the the bid packet this morning. Anybody else have amendments to the agenda?
There was the a name of for appointments, Michelle Stewart, the STWARD should be STEWART. Thomas, please.
Okay, that is, you can correct that, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Okay, any other amendments to the agenda?
One clarification, you're putting the golf carts under purchase request?
Purchase request, yes. Okay, a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved with the addition of the golf cart center purchase request and the correction of Michelle's. Approval of minutes, February 23rd, 2022, regular meeting minutes. Are there any corrections?
Yeah, I have some corrections,
Okay.
or a correction.
We
We got to move to, I move to approve the agenda, the motion or the minutes,
I second it.
the minutes from January, the 23rd.
February 23rd.
February 23rd.
February 23rd.
Second.
Josette seconded
I
it.
seconded it, yeah.
All in favor of amending the agenda for the February 23?
That's the minutes.
No.
No, I got it. Let me give you the correction.
What is your correction?
Yeah, under appointments for Stuart Lackernick, it reads, it was endorsed by Ms. Peck, seconded by Mr. Parks, Mr. Farr also in favor. Dr. Horn, Mr. Perone, Mr. Daly, Ms. Wheatley opposed, appointment not approved, and that's not exactly correct. The vote was Director Peck abstained, President Horn abstained, Director Daly, Perone, and Wheatley were opposed, and Director Parks and Director Farr voted in favor.
Okay, so any other corrections to that set of minutes?
Just one order, I'm not going to argue it, but was that confirmed on the video? Is that why you're bringing this back up?
Well, it is my recollection of how the vote went, and
It was.
it was confirmed in the video.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was confirmed, because I'd hate to make this change and then go back to the video and turn around and say, well, no, that's not exactly what it was.
No, it was
I'm
confirmed.
saying that someone reviewed the video and agreed with it.
Yes. Okay. No other changes. Okay, so a motion to amend the minutes, correct the minutes as stated by Mr. Perone.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And the minutes, motion to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Are there any corrections to this
I have one correction to it. The minutes should list that Director Wheatley was an excused absence.
Okay, any other corrections? Okay, a motion to amend to approve the minutes as corrected by Director Perone.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So those are approved as corrected. President's remarks, just the only remarks I have are to welcome those of you who are here virtually and in person. We have 13 virtual participants. And so it's nice to see people coming and participating in this process. Thank you for coming. GM report, Mr. Viola.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Colette. Okay, turn the page. That's obviously a picture of our new wall and doors and closet. Not excellent. Okay, so today we'll talk to you about 3 items. I'll talk a little bit about it first. They were initiatives, and then they will be in new business. But we'll basically follow this agenda, this outline as we always do. Steve will talk to you about the financials and an update on North Star. Linda will talk and give us update on metrics, info at Ocean Pines, and she certainly has taken that to the next level. Cpi violations of work orders. So with that, let's turn the page and let's go. All right, so we've talked about this. I was tasked by the board to improve the Northgate Bridge, where you have done improvements. We've talked about them in the past, forward today, and you'll hear in new business. And we've come forward before to move on lights. See pictures there in general, that's what the lights would look like that we're going to buy. Hopefully we get approval today. At the 4 corners of the bridge, you'll see the higher pole lights. There'll be a double light. And then similar to what we have now with the globe lights, and you can see an example of it on the far right, a single light, not as tall, 6 on each side illuminating the bridge. So we'll be coming forward on this, and I just wanted to give you some pictures of what it'll look like. Turn the page.
John, I have a question about that. Presently, there are these poles that have the lights on them are tall. Those are not structural poles. Those will be removed or cut down.
So you're correct on the last piece, that those will be cut down.
Okay.
They'll be used at the bottom to support the poles.
Okay.
They're not necessarily for structure at that height, correct? They were there to hold the globe poles, pole lights. Yep.
Thank you.
Cut down, everything will be uniform.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so the second initiative, and you've certainly heard me speak about this for over a year, if not longer. The good news is that I am coming forward today. We were able to put together bids as well as internal work. I'll talk about a little more to get this completed. So I just want to show you again the picture. It's the far left there. It's got a red circle around it. That will be the new pickleball courts, or at least the proposed, hopefully approval today, that we've been talking about. Right, so we did send out a lot of RFPs. Not many companies, only a few did respond. The ones that did respond wanted to do the work as far as the courts themselves and the fence, all that with a base, especially the one that we're coming forward with. We will have to, and I'll talk more about it, we will have to come forward with our own team to do site work. And I've spent time with Eddie Noby, and we're putting together a game plan for that, for us to do the site work that's needed for this type of situation. So it would be a combination between our team and an outside company, which is the best of both. So that'll be a new business. Turn the page. Okay, so this, again, we can see how this has evolved, and Josh and I were just talking about this, where we were 4 years ago, or where we weren't, and how we've evolved over the last year. Today, currently, you can see the advancements as far as the video camera, the audio, this whole room setup.
and even where the board is, and we have some audio, video for them. So it's really advanced. The next step, Keith told me would be wireless in here. So we're certainly moving there. I've talked about in the past how much it costs, but we continue to enhance this process. Turn the page. Golf carts. So this is, I did talk to Budget and Finance the other day. I reviewed this with Budget and Finance and also discussed with the Golf Advisory Committee yesterday. We're trying to be proactive on this. Again, this would be new business. This would be something that's not in the budget that we just received approval on. This is for something almost 15 months down the road, but that's the lead time that's needed to order, purchase golf carts. With that said, we are getting a very good deal, which I will talk about in the next minute or so, but I am coming forward to the board to ask for approval to move forward to order these golf carts, which would come in, and I need at least 15, 18 months lead time. They will come in when the current golf carts are fully depreciated. We are getting a good deal on it. They will be more efficient, certainly more efficient as far as gas. The warranty for the carts that we have now is pretty much up. And so if you look at it, instead of running these things into the ground, and they certainly will be fully depreciated, and we will have a gain on the trade-in, we feel that it's most cost-effective to order these now, especially when you need a 15, 18-month leadway. So it is 76 golf carts. And in just an example, in 2016, we paid around $370,000 after the trade-in the old fleet. And if anybody was here back then, that old fleet was pretty much run down. We had put money in the fleet, and then the decision was made, and it was the right decision to trade them in. We're in the 6th year of a 7-year depreciation schedule. Will be fully depreciated at the end of 2023, just what I said before. So this is something that will be when the golf carts are fully depreciated. The warranty has expired and carts are starting to show wear, seats, panels, windshields, tires, and I believe also the brakes. I saw they were here the other day working on that. So we're coming forward, and again, I'll do this in new business, but we're recommending the trade-in the carts, the purchase of new fleet, which is going to come in at a purchase price less than what we paid in 2016. Obviously, we're going to get a better, and we've gotten a very good trade-in, at least we feel it is, a very good trade-in value. If you look at the depreciation on the net asset value of this after trade-in, it becomes favorable. And again, I'm talking about the net the net value of the carts after trading. New carts are more fuel efficient and quieter and will have lower maintenance costs. Delivery of new carts could take up to 18 months. So that's why we're coming forward now. We will not be paying for these. There will be no cash outlay. And that's just a little detail on an item-on-item basis of what the carts would be. Again, I'll handle this in new business. Turn the page. Okay, Linda will talk to you about some metrics as far as work orders, the info at oceanpines.org, which is probably one of the best and most efficient processes and initiatives that we've put in, and Linda and her team have certainly brought this to the next level. So, Linda?
Okay, February, we're starting to pick up on the info at Ocean Pines with emails and phone calls. We had a total of 115. Most of them were just general questions. We did have a lot in CPI as far as building questions. You can turn to the next slide. CPI violations as of the end of February, we were a total of 88. 52 of them are illegal. We're waiting for court cases. Most of the violations have been complied out. People are responding very rapidly, but we do have, like I said, 52 in legal right now, waiting for court cases. Next slide. Work orders. Work orders we currently have at the end of February, 105 open. The majority of them are in drainage and landscaping. Landscaping, of course, will be done in the spring when the weather warms up, and drainage, unfortunately, it's a revolving door where once you hire them out, you get 20 more every month. So the oldest one is in grounds and landscaping for saltgrass, and that is supposed to be completed in the spring. Next slide. Southgate con lights, we're looking into replacing or putting in new con lights as well as at the intersections. The pricing with the pole would be between $699 to $4,399. Without the pole, $165 to $1,175. That's for each. Currently, we're trying to work with a local supplier that's out of Fruitland, Maryland, and we're just waiting for a quote on that.
Linda, what would the total?
We would have to be designed of how many we need around the north gate and what intersections.
What are you anticipating?
At this time, we're not.
So at this time, I was just tasked to just go forward and try to get some examples we were told, and just get a feel for this. But that would be the next stage, Larry.
Okay. Just wanted to give a brief update. Next slide. A brief update on our current ERP system, North Star. We continue the team to work towards utilizing the different capabilities and functionalities available within North Star. And we're excited to say that we actually launched our online payment portal on Monday, March 21st is the date. That is actually live now. The members can actually log in, make payments on their assessments. There's a credit debit option, and we also have the ACH option so that fees can payments can actually be deducted directly from checking accounts with no additional fee. So this is hopefully the first step in many different utilizations of the online features. This will be our learning process and kind of the kickoff implementation stage just for the POA, which is the assessments. Hopefully more to come there. Just an update on support. All the department heads, including IT, finance, continue to work hard in partnership with North Star. We have standing meetings each month. We have additional sessions with those department heads and North Star support as needed to address issues. And then we also have monthly management oversight meetings to address the high level issues. You can see the chart that we put together kind of shows a good trend downward from December through March. These are the actual tickets started by month. But obviously we're going to have to monitor this as we ramp up and start the season. Hopefully we continue to go in this direction. Checked in with Keith, who's been dialed into all our open tickets. We have 5 as of today. We have various enhancements out there. But like I said, growing pains, but we're headed in the right direction.
So Steve, if I could just jump in. So, and you could see with the management of Keith and everybody in the constant calls and follow-up where we are now. We've had this situation before, and I've spoken about it, where we saw the amount of tickets coming down, and then they did a new release or some upgrades, and we lost that information. And I've spoken to you about this, and that's unacceptable. So far, we are tracking that, and Keith is on them. We all are. We've had meetings with their top people. We just need time to ensure that it's sustainable. But we're certainly seeing good progress since the calls that we've had, as you can witness there.
Next slide.
That's me. Okay, so I try to touch on every amenity that we have and what we're doing. Aquatics, we did have a punch list. Basically public works, and we've gotten pretty much everything completed. Some of this stuff was out there for a while, but there's certainly a terrific effort getting ready for the season in all the amenities, not just aquatics. Racket sports, we've been working there. As I've told you before, we now have a dedicated person there all the time, and we're certainly seeing the results there. As far as also in racket sports, we are looking at the cracks. Debbie and I just spoke yesterday. We're trying to see the best approach on that, and we're going to come up on a game plan. Ball field, also Debbie's trying to get ready for the season. I gave her approval to go outside. We're going to get a landscaper. We just don't have the manpower right now. So she is working with a landscaper who has background and expertise in the ball field, and we should be ready sometime in May. And then we'll have a plan in place going forward to ensure maintenance and that it continues. Yacht Club, there were some loading doors. Ralph talked to me about it. It had been outstanding for couple of years. We have somebody came in, there was two bids. I think it came out to 4,200. I had 3,800, but that might've been before some other costs. So we're going forward with that. Ralph and everything there, everybody's on the same page and good. Clubhouse, I'm not gonna say it again, but here it is. This was all done in-house. I believe we saved a lot of money doing it in-house. So again, it's kind of a hybrid approach where we try to utilize our team. And then when we can't, we bring in people from the outside, and we've been successful over the last 3 years with that. We are going to put a railing around the bar, I guess like a foot railing. It'll help with the decor in there and some of the color. It'll be very similar, if not the same, as what you have at the yacht club. Swimming racket, I got tasked on this, but we're working on it. The kayak racks will be installed in April along the side of the building. That's all been discussed. Hopefully I have that checked off in April. Okay, turn the page. Marina, good. All right, so the marina, obviously, besides, the water being turned on, the repairs done, we have gotten some, questions or requests on certain items like that from the boaters and the marina, but that will all be taken care of. The shower will be fixed in the marina bathrooms, and we do the repairs on the water line, so that's gonna be done. But the big piece here is this, and this even came out of an advisory committee meetings and talked about. So those ramps, you see the ramp going down on an incline, they're in need of repair. Public Works has ordered the wood, and we're going to build them in-house, and there'll be a savings in that. So we're looking the whole estimate to improve and repair and do the maintenance on these two docks over there at approximately $5,000, mostly in-house. So all the rubbers all around it, the U-ring around the pilings, all that'll be replaced, and any boards or anything like that. So that should be ready and taken care of. Front page. All right, so the beach club. So we did get, I think in fact, it might have been at a board meeting, but in other meetings, there's been discussions about the mats. Certain people want mats going out to the beach. Now, we don't own that property. That's Ocean City, and I've spoken about this before. I think it was the last board meeting, whatever. I was asked to go back and further look into this, which I did. I did speak to Budget and Finance. The mats are approximately $10,000 a piece. If we wanted two of them, that's $20,000 plus. The big thing is this. First of all, we don't own that property. But even if you put mats in there, apparently we're finding out from discussions with Ocean City is the maintenance. They use a front loader to maintain the sand and everything around these mats, and there's a lot of maintenance that's involved. And again, we don't own that. We don't have that kind of equipment there or anything. So the cost would be way more, and it certainly would be an ongoing cost. Now, I'm being told that Ocean City has put in the mats. Obviously, they're ADA compliant, so the beach is ADA compliant. The closest one to us, I'm being told, is on 48th Street from Ocean City. So there is one there. With all that said, what we do have, and if you look down at the bottom lockers there, which are right on the deck. So if you're coming from the parking lot, and you're coming in and you're facing the water, and you're on the left side, and you go up there onto that boardwalk there just before the sand, on the left are those two lockers. And inside those two lockers are these wheelchairs, beach compliant. So they've been there. They will continue to be there. And that is what we've been using for anybody that needs assistance to go on the beach. So we have that there. I'm saying that we stay with this. And, if we have to do anything else as far as market it, put instructions, any type of pictures, we'll certainly do that. Last meeting or the board meeting before that, I was asked about the palm trees. Now, we didn't do the palm trees. I didn't do them the last 2 years because of COVID. Wasn't even sure if we'd be going to the beach. I was asked about them. They are in the budget. We did order them. They will come in May. Okay, that's it. And obviously, we did any type of work that was needed as far as the kitchen, and Ralph and I have signed off on all that stuff. He's gotten anything that's needed there, as well as what we felt that needed to be replaced. Yes.
Do you have the ability at the beach club to keep data on the usage of these wheelchairs?
So we don't have data, but that's something that we could
this
do.
year?
Sure, we could do that going forward, certainly, because if we did need another one, I would definitely come forward. I mean, it's a couple $1,000s, but yeah, we will do that.
Yeah, I'd like us to evaluate that at the end of
Okay.
the summer. Thanks.
Doug?
Okay, just kind of a tangential question. How many wheelchairs are available right now?
Yeah, so there's two wheelchairs available right now. I'm being told, again, we don't have official documents on it, but I'm being told there was never really a backup. I will do what the board's asking me as far as following up and trying to keep track of it. And certainly we'll come forward if we need another one. I think those are around $2,500. I mean, and I've told Kathleen that if we need one, we'll definitely do it. I'll find the money for it.
John, is there some kind of a licensing authority that determines that these are ADA compliant, they're safe to use?
Talking about the wheelchairs?
Wheelchairs.
I'm sure they are. I will find that out, but I'm going to say yes, but I'll find that out also. I'll get that and I'll get we'll do the usage and we'll mark it and put more instructions out there where these are and everything so everybody knows. Yep. I'll do that as a takeaway. Good. Okay, turn the page. All right, financials, so Steve presented last month with the budget and everything. We think it's as part of the, talked about the development program, backup, everybody having a backup. And I've kind of been doing the financials for the last, I don't know, 5-7 years or whatever. We certainly have a very qualified young man here. And Steve is going to take us through the financials today.
Okay, financials, current month of February, these will be posted right after this meeting. The package was completed last night. You can see that February, we actually have most closures across OPA. So we actually have a $662,000 loss budgeted for the month. You can see that we came in at 628, so we were favorable $34,000. Yeah. Year-to-date perspective, this continues to add on to the trend that we've experienced thus far. So we are sitting at $1.520 million favorability year-to-date. Next slide. Okay, now the drivers, $26.5 million, and this is actually attributed to primarily revenues, our county roads revenues. I trued up this month based on the increase versus the budget. We had about $70,000 built into the budget. We're trending to receive close to $130,000, $140,000. So that's a good story. But that's the driver there, the 26.5. $17,000 between GM, finance, admin. It's primarily attributed to vacancies that we have within a couple of our positions within the admin office. And then golf ops and maintenance, primarily organic revenue growth. A few $1,000s. We don't have a lot budgeted for the month, but we were up about $4,000 or $5,000 in terms of revenues, and then we also had some favorability on the expenditure side as well. We did have some expenditure overage within racket sports of some unbudgeted payroll costs, and then same thing on Clubhouse Grill, some unbudgeted payroll costs there as well. So that's your $34.2 thousand for the month of February. Next slide. Then this slide hasn't changed a whole lot. We added one, of course, the $34,000 that we received in, or that we recognized in February. But we still have the same key drivers. Of course, the year-to-date variance is, primarily attributed to our great summer last year, our record-setting revenues that we received within the amenities. So you can see aquatics, golf, yacht club, all $100,000 plus in terms of favorability. That leads us to our $1.5 million, which we've been estimating, I guess, in that range of 1.3 to 1.5 as our favorability, and that's where we're still at here at February 28th. Next slide. Okay, so our reserves, you can see our balance has actually increased between the year end last year and our current balance. You can see we have $6.7 million in reserves. We do anticipate, you'll see on the next slide, I'll get into the estimated spending to occur between February and the end of this year. But you can see that we are well at this point in excess of not well in excess, but we are in excess of the 22% threshold that we, I guess, designate as our threshold within the reserve funding balance. Next slide. And this is basically just tacking on any additional anticipated spend. I will say it's relatively conservative. I checked in with Public Works yesterday, and all those fleet vehicles will actually not be delivered prior to year end of 4/30. So that number is actually going to come down. So you'll probably see that $782,000 in spend come down. It looks like the bottom actually cut off. We do have the bulkhead spending that will increase about $300,000, $400,000 in the next 2 months. But I believe that bottom line number is about $5.7 million is what it adds up to. So that pretty much says that we expect another $500,000 to $1 million in spending in the next 2 months, primarily in the area of bulkheads.
Steve?
Yep.
This 22% threshold, we're working toward raising that. Is that correct?
Yeah, Colette, you actually took my, and Steve's right, for the 22 year, we're at 22. And by the way, this is a tool that we utilize to review everything. Steve reviews this with me every month to ensure that the balance sheet and our capital health is there. So you're right, it's 22%. Just where we're tracking with everything now, Colette and everybody else, we're going to be 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now, we're looking at being around 30, 31%, but we're certainly in the higher epsilon of the range of 22 to 28% set years ago by Budget and Finance and approved by the board. So we're going to be in that higher range even before we look at the favorability that Steve spoke about and what we can possibly do with that next year.
Okay, so being above that 22% target is a good thing. That gets us there.
This is the healthiest we've been. I've been doing this and looking at this stuff for 12 years. That's without the favorability that we're running right now, which is not realized yet.
Okay.
I have a comment on that too. We, at the Budget and Finance meeting on Monday, we discussed adjusting this goal from the 22 to 28%. And the Budget and Finance Committee is going to look at making a request that we put a target of 28 to 35% on this. So
28 to 35.
right, that's what the Budget and Finance Committee we discussed on Monday. The reason being, this 22 to 28% number basically was an arbitrary number that we decided on when we did the reserve study. So, our obligation as a board, and of course the Budget and Finance Committee obligation, is to try to make sure that the financial health of the community improves. So that's the recommendation. And you can see from John's projections, it's not out of line that it's going to be, we'll probably get there eventually anyway.
One other point, kind of buried somewhere in the financials, unless you take a good look at it, is unless we get 40 days of rain, 40 days and nights of rain, it appears that every amenity by class will show a net operating profit.
Right.
And I distinctly remember 3 years ago sitting down and looking at one of these sheets and calling it a damnable culture of indifference.
Right.
Congratulations on turning it around.
Thank you. Team effort. So if I may speak, and Larry, I guess I wasn't in there for that part of the Budget and Finance, and that's certainly the right to go from 22 to 28% to 28 to 35%, and looking forward to more discussions on that. When you say arbitrary, and I just want to discuss, and that's a word, arbitrary, but when we show that we have tools like this, and we've shown this and we've presented this before, where we go out and project, and I just told everybody that we will be around 30% in 26, 27. It's a little more than arbitrary. We've actually, we're doing analysis on it. But what that analysis shows is that what we project to spend from the DMA study is well within the capital contribution that we make each year. So I went out at least 5-7 years to see, we're pretty much in that range that we contribute $1.8 million to $2 million, depending on what the board decides with new capital. But that's what our spend projections are right now. So if B&F is recommended and the board wants to look, so it's fine with me to go to that 28, 35%. I hope that you decide to do it over time, because it's going to take a hit in a certain year where I'm not totally sure it's needed, especially, and again, if our operations change or whatever, but I would really request that Budget and Finance and the board, please look at this schedule that we prepare, that Steve's team prepares, and that I've put. But look, 28, 35%, I'm certainly not going to disagree with it. All I'm saying is it's not just arbitrary. There is an analysis to it. And we've seen, and what I'm seeing there is that what we project to spend over the next 5, 6, 7 years is kind of in that $2 million range. But also that's what we've been contributing, is in that $1 to $2 million. So that's all I just have on it, but I'd love to be a part of it.
John, let me clarify. I didn't mean that, when I said arbitrary, I meant that our initial discussions as to what we were going to set as the initial goal was basically arbitrary.
Okay.
If you remember the discussions we had, DMA study, they really didn't give us a recommendation. Their position was that, it's up to you what you want to do. Certainly did not want to make our reserves at 100%. We talked about 50%, and we talked about what was a reasonable number for the community, and settled on 22 to 28%. So now that we're at that point at the 22, so it's just makes sense to, if we improve the financial health of the community, to raise that goal, and it's a goal to 28 to 75, necessarily making it that it's not analyzed or that we're just throwing a number out there. I agree with it.
Yeah, so, and Larry, I'm sorry if you finished. So we're just looking at it quick. So you're talking about, or B&F is, and I'm just talking it out. You're talking about having in your reserves probably another $1 million, $1.5 million, whereas we usually have a balance, Steve, of about what? 6 and change now. We've been around 5 at the end of the day. So, I mean, that's not, I would say do it over time.
It's over time, John. It's not, we're not,
Okay.
just like this was an overtime. If you remember, we started it, I think, at 17%.
Yeah. All right, 17%, right.
Was there any update on the legislation that was proposed to increase our reserves and have a minimum amount?
Well, I looked into it a little more, and I think someone else on the Budget and Finance Committee looked into it, Tom. And the legislation in Montgomery and Prince George's County didn't establish a percentage of what reserve adequacy had to be. So as far as I know, I believe it's been
Now that has come up before.
entered into the process again, but I haven't had any updates.
Colette, if I can, and actually I'm going to ask Steve to jump in. So Steve, what basically did the legislation? I mean, we looked at some of this.
Yeah, we reviewed it. So I think it really required that you needed to have a reserve study was the primary basis of it, right?
So, but the practical takeaway from this, if I understand it, for our homeowners that aren't enmeshed in these numbers, is this: the current contribution to reserves appears to be adequate for the next 7+ years. And we have no major building projects on the horizon that we can foresee for decades. So right now, barring anything unforeseen, the ship is pretty steady.
Yes, sir. That's what our tools and everything is showing. Now, look, obviously, if the board makes a decision, I certainly, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying all the numbers and everything is showing we're pretty much going to be consistent and we're going to get in there that 28 to 30. But Steve and I were just talking, to get there another 5% or something, you're talking about putting into reserves, maybe what, 700 to another million, 700 just right off the top of our heads, which isn't, if you do it over time, I think we're going to generate it with operations, to be honest with you, and I hope to continue. So, but you're right, everything you just said.
If we continue to generate for operations and we put a portion of that, like we did this year, to go into reserves and a portion to assessment reduction, then it looks like we'll be getting better over time in two different ways that usually divert.
Right. But if I may add on that, though, first of all, everything that Frank said is correct. But with this said, we did reduce, there was that one-time line that we have now, right? Where when we have favorability, we have to match that again each year to get down there. We do have headwinds. We have some strong headwinds like everybody else, whether macro or micro. We have wages. We certainly have some different dynamics in keeping our people where everything was local in the past. Now we have to deal with the internet and people that can work here and do a job that's in New York or DC or somewhere else. So we have that, we have inflation, but you're right. And I think we're pretty good for the foreseeable short future. Yep, no, you guys are right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, treasurer's report.
Our cash position, our rate of return is at 0.75. Everybody understands what's going on in the market. As of February 28th, we had approximately $12.3 million in cash, 7.1 million in CDARS, and 5.2 million in money markets.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, public comments. We'll start with comments in the room, and Josh, if there are any people who raise their hands virtually, we'll give them the floor afterward.
Good morning, Tom Piatti, 13 Chatham Court, Section 16. I'm here today as the chairman of the search committee. The search committee, I was appointed in January. I picked up a search committee member, Andy Davis. She was with me last year. By the way, this is my fourth year working in the search committee. I have 3 applicants that you have in your packet today. One is Sherry Clifford, who has impeccable credentials. Some of those are IT related, plus running businesses. The second is Michelle Stewart, who's actually was on the screen here. She's watching this. She has a PhD in organizational leadership. There she is. They're chomping on the bit to get the committee going, as I am. The third is Stuart Lackernick, and I noticed in the board packet that there's not a healthy endorsement for Stuart. When I interviewed or talked to all these potential applicants for my committee, I asked them to attach documentation so people could see the skills that they had. Michelle attached her CV, her curriculum vitae, course of life is really a resume, and she's highly qualified. For Stuart, I had him attach an addendum, but the addendum wasn't a part of your packet. So I'd like to read that to you for your consideration when you vote later on in the meeting. And the question was, why do you want to be on this committee? And his response was, to help develop a large slate of potential candidates. I was a candidate in the last 2 Ocean Pines elections and garnered many votes. I literally knocked on about 1,000 doors, community-wide, met thousands of his residents, and encountered much enthusiasm. I feel that sharing my experiences with potential candidates will be encouraging and helpful in making their decision to run. In summary, you had confidence in me to appoint me as chairman of this committee. Please have confidence in me to run my committee and appoint all 3 of these members to my committee today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Lou Williams, 78 Teal Circle. I first want to say kudos and thank you to all of you for monitoring our budget. From what I've seen, and I've been here for 19 plus years, 20 years, I've done a numerous jobs. So I want to say thank you, first of all, foremost, for that watching our dollars. Can you tell me what would it cost us, since we're in pretty good shape at this point, to give each property owner 2-3 tee times a year, 2 swim passes, and maybe 2 pickleball or tennis court times, 2 hours? What would it cost us? Is there a cost to us if we did that? I know you probably can't answer right now.
Do you want me to answer?
Can you answer it? Yeah.
So, obviously, depending on when they use the golf course, there may not be a cost or there may be a cost. If they're using it, if we did something like this and put it at a time where we said that there were no bookings, that probably wouldn't cost us that much. If somebody wants to go out there at 10 o'clock, that could cost us hundreds of dollars. And that's pretty much consistent. The aquatics, it depends if the pools are full or not. I don't know what kind of volume we would receive. Quite honestly, what the board approved, where we cut the assessment by $100, I think is the way to go, and then people use it for whichever way they want. But outside of that, it depends. Obviously, if the pickleball courts are empty and it's at 3 o'clock on a Sunday, it really wouldn't cost us anything. But it depends. There'd have to be there's a lot of parameters there, sir.
Understand that the variable would be our prime time is
right, exactly.
Our moneymaker. I understand that.
Right.
I'm saying, whether it's off season, I don't think the residents would really mind, and at least we would, our HOAs are pretty much lower than most of the ones around the country.
Right.
Some places in the country you pay for what you don't use. And for me, I'm grateful that that's not the case for us. But, yet still, they're not getting a whole lot for our HOA. So that's why I figured I'd ask that, because then, it might generate some more interest for some more income. Secondly, for 2 years, I've been calling Public Works and asking them to come and dig out the trench in front of my house. Because what happens is the dirt comes in and stay in the water and mosquitoes. It's still that way 2 years later. Can anybody tell me is there a reason for that?
So what's your address again?
78 Teal Circle. Myself and my neighbor who is 80, we've called. And, we do pretty good trying to maintain it, but I'm just about the standing water. I know we have an issue. We don't want that.
I'll go out and look at it. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, Joe?
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. If I were president of the association, I would appoint Stuart Lackernick to this committee he's applied to, whether I agreed with his OPA politics or not. I also disagree to some extent with Mr. Piatti in the sense that he requested that the board allow him to run his committee. And I respect that position. However, the bylaws not say that the committee chairman or the committee or anybody else can appoint people to committees. The bylaws state, without exception, the president of the association shall appoint. The board then can approve. And there's a little difference between the search committee and other committees in the bylaws, but essentially it's the president's job to appoint. If the president doesn't want to appoint, there's no appointment. The board has nothing to vote on. But this business with Mr. Lackernick, who happened to be on screen at the time, I don't agree with Mr. Lackernick and all his politics, but there's no reason at all to reject this individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else? Josh, do we have anybody virtually?
We just have one hand up. Dinah or Dina?
Okay.
Yes, good morning. My name is Dinah Huffmeister, 43 Ocean Parkway. I'm a 2-year owner of a family home bought in 1999. That said, with some things that have happened at the last board meeting, I felt the need to address something. I'm going to state now that I'm not friends with anyone in either the Get Involved or the Ocean Pines Resident Oversight Committee. I knew nothing about Esther Diller or her husband. The only two things I had knowledge about were Colby Phillips and the election debacle with Mr. Farr. Back on the 19th of January, I posted about an incident on Facebook regarding my water being wrongfully turned off. And after trading comments with someone, I received a private message through Messenger. It was from Amy Peck, and she stated the following: Debbie Bloom is best friends with Esther Diller and completely discounts Esther's felony conviction, her husband, Stuart Lackernick, and the involvement with Rick Farr. My advice is to ignore. I love how Debbie's preaching personal responsibility for something you had no control over, but makes excuses for how Esther stole millions and millions of money from Medicare. I replied back, thanks for explaining. It makes no sense to me what she was trying to say to me. And then I said, so Stewart should be someone not to vote for in the future. And then she replied back to me, do your own research, USA versus Esther Diller docket board. Stewart is her husband, a chiropractor. I said, okay, thanks. I wonder why someone with a record would put herself out there. If it were me, I would try to hide, be unseen. And then Amy responded back to me, there is or was an agenda to get her people elected. As director, I have a duty to guard our $16 million a year budget. It's important for board members to have an attitude of service. There's a reason why the GM, every department head, employees, and every committee chair, respected past board members, are asking me to consider running for another term. My record speaks for itself. By my response, you could see that I didn't even know who she was talking about. And I even mentioned that I voted for Mr. Lackernick last year. And did I make a mistake? I was quite stunned that a director would randomly reach out to me with such personal information. In the days that followed, I participated in both groups on Facebook. Various people, me included, were asking questions concerning who exactly is the ROC group and what was their oversight intentions of the board when several board members were members of the group. And Amy was even listed at one time as an admin. This group claims to be for open discussions, yet comments, questions, and most importantly, people were being deleted by the admin. Needing some clarity, I decided to reach out on the 24th through private messenger to Colby Phillips, because I had always read such positive things about her. And I asked her, and I don't even know her, but I asked her the following. I said, good morning. I have a question for you because I would like to get an honest answer. Whose side is Amy Peck on? She messaged me the other day and told me to ignore Debbie Bloom. She was best friends with Esther. I voted for Rick Farr and Stewart, and because of all the crap you went through, I knew we needed change. But yet on some things, Amy seems to be on Farr's side, or is she playing both sides? And to paraphrase some of what Colby responded to me, she said that Amy is all about Amy. She wants to shove info out to prove her stuff is most important. She's also a very good friend. She also was a very good friend to Esther, knew the whole situation, and then turned her back on her. That's what she does. If you don't agree with her, she turns on you. For those who are trying to be positive, they sure do bash Esther behind her back. And she went on to tell me a little bit more about Esther. And then I said, wow, that's what I figured. It explains a whole lot of the conversation in the bylaws committee meeting. Something about separating a husband and wife if one had a felony charge to just an individual. So, how can anyone who sits on the board justify themselves by reaching out to folks they don't even know to share information like that? I even read in the paper the other day Mr. Daly making the same comments about Miss Diller. Now I ask, when will all this nonsense end? What transpired at the last board meeting with Mr. Lackernick being turned down for a volunteer committee member is appalling. I certainly hope that doesn't happen again today. This was the catalyst for me to speak out today. And Mr. Daly's reason for the no vote last time was because the board has not received an apology from Mr. Lackernick as a joke. This has been a tough decision for me to make. There are two things I'd like to see happen. First, I'd like to see the board take a look at the Ocean Pines ROC page group and see how it can be an oversight to our board of directors when several members of the group are in this group. It's confusing. And also, I would think some type of discipline or explanation from Miss Peck for her gossiping behavior, because I found out I'm not the only one she has shared this information with. And maybe can answer some of the following questions. What exactly was your intent with the unsolicited messages regarding Esther and the quote that there is or was an agenda to get her people elected? As a director, I have a duty to guard our $16 million a year budget. And also, what is the conspiracy theory?
Ma'am,
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you. Your 5 minutes is up.
I got one sentence
If
left.
you have some specific additional questions that you would like the board to address, please email us at directors@oceanpines.org and we will address those. Thank you.
I had one.
I'd like to make one comment here.
I had a question.
It is not the responsibility of the board of directors to monitor or enforce anything that goes on with any social media website, whether it be the Get Involved site, the ROC site, Joe Reynolds Forum, or anything else. So asking the board to get involved in that is just inappropriate. Right.
Josh, is there anybody else on the virtual platform that is seeking?
I don't have any other hands. I just have a, there was a comment in the chat from Terry Clifford. She said Amy was never an admin of the ROC.
Okay. All right, that concludes public comments then.
Gentleman raise his hand up here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
My name's Ken Waters, 27 Bird Nest Drive. And I just want to say that if you consider Stuart Lackerneck, I hope what you would consider is only like all the votes he garnered when he ran. And I think that should be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, that concludes public comments. Purchase request.
Thank you, Colette. Okay, just give me a second. All right, so as mentioned earlier, they're coming forward with three requests. First is the Northgate Bridge lights, requesting authorization to go forward with staff recommendation, $39,995 for the 16 lights for the Northgate Bridge with the Denny Electric supplier.
Any questions about this? Nope. Okay, all in favor of supporting?
John, did they give you a lead time?
Yeah, I actually have it. I think it's
12 weeks.
Yeah, 12 weeks, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, 12 weeks. Yep. And then our team will be doing most of the install. Yep. Okay, to turn the page.
We need a motion to vote on that.
Oh, sorry.
So do we have a motion?
I had it still scrambled.
A motion to approve.
Second? Second. Doug, all in favor of supporting this purchase request for $39,995 to Denny Electric? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this one passes.
Okay, thank you. Next, pickleball courts. And I have to say a lot of effort, team effort, a lot has gone into this, and just happy that we were able to come forward with bids and everything. But I'm here for the pickleball courts proposal requesting authorization to go forward with staff recommendation of $175,244.50 for ATC Corporation. Along with, we will have to do additional site work from all the plants and everything for in-house that we estimate for material and labor in-house, 40,000.
John,
Everything's been approved. We've done everything that was been asked for us.
And then has ATC seen what the site work preparation is going to look like that they're going to be building on?
So the ATC Corporation, we have explained that to them. That was all in the requests, in the RFPs.
Okay.
And they know what we'll be doing, yes.
Okay.
And that will all be worked out.
Anybody else have any? Doug?
So John, in summary, they're basically saying they would honor any warranty because of the.
I understand. That's my understanding. The normal warranty for that type of situation, yes.
All right.
They have their own sub-base that'll be on there. It's just we need to get the drainage and all that up to where the county and the state wants it.
Okay. Anybody else? So I have a motion to approve the spend of $175,244.50 with ATC Corp for this project.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's approved.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay, so I have one more. I have the golf course. Do we have a slide up there, John? Do you have one, please?
I don't have one for that.
You don't have it? Okay, let me read it off. So the golf carts, and I did talk about it earlier, right? 76 carts, the same as we have now. And again, I'm not talking about payment now. I'm talking about something 15 months out. Thank you, Josh. I'm talking about something 15 months out, but approval to purchase. I gave the detail on it and what we believe this would be the best time. They'll be fully depreciated carts. We do trade them in, and we would be getting a trade-in allowance well better than what we did in the past. So with that, requesting authorization to go forward with staff recommendation of $260,908 for 76 carts from Yamaha, who we have right now.
anybody? Doug?
Hey, John, I think it's great that we're getting a pretty good price on the trade-ins. Will that number remain constant 18 months from now, or do you anticipate any kind of change?
So assuming, yeah, no, it's a good question, Doug. And so assuming that, and I should say, assuming everything's equal in the world, and even they're factoring what type of depreciation, what would happen to these carts over time, yes, that's the price then.
I mean, even at 10%, we're still, yeah.
Oh, it's a good number, right? Now, obviously, if we wreck a cart or something, that's a different deal, but the normal, what they experience and what we've been going through with them, but yes.
I guess the question is if, when we sign this contract here, those numbers will be spelled out in the contract.
Sorry?
When we sign the contract for the order, those numbers will be spelled out in the contract.
Yes. Yep. I don't see John, he was in here before, but the answer is yes. And I will come to the board to sign it.
Anybody else? Okay, a motion to approve the spend of $59,33 each for.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
It doesn't.
Yeah, the numbers are in the contract, yeah, no. And they'll sign, I'll have to give it to them to sign up. Yep. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
John must have.
CPI violations, there are none. Unfinished business. The first one is a second reading of revisions to resolution MO9. The proposed revisions to resolution MO9 aim to do this. These revisions have undergone 2 prior readings by the board and discussed by the board of the language, discussion by the board of the language changes noted. Following the second review and discussion of this language, the document was reviewed by the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee. The attached version 6 reflects text edits that occurred as a result of the discussions by the board and the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Just a second. Any discussion? Doug?
In section 8, A1, it says the secretary should use Worcester County land records, to verified property ownership. And 8A actually says candidate eligibility under 502 A, C, and D of the bylaws is defined as, and it gives a definition. Given the fact that we're looking at section 1.11, for eventual bylaw change, do we need to reference that in here? I'd like to get an opinion from the bylaws resolution committee or council to see if we are, by leaving that out, it should be referenced in here before we move forward.
That's a good question. If 1.11 is approved, owner of record will be defined in the bylaws. So I don't think we need to reference that section 1.11 in this, because it kind of goes without saying it.
You're also referencing section 502 of the bylaws. So why would you leave one section out versus either leave both of them out or put both of them in?
Okay, I think the reference, well, it's not there now, is one reason we can't reference it in this at this point.
So I guess the point being is that if we move forward with this and 1.11 gets approved, we're going to have some homework to do to come back and re-update this particular resolution to reflect that properly.
Yes, yes.
Just want to make sure everybody understands that and agrees with it.
Okay. Anybody else? All righty. All in favor of approving this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So this motion passes. Okay, next is second reading on resolution MO9 attachment A that was incorrectly identified. The portion of the attachments that this meant to address was actually originally named B. And in the process of it being reviewed and revised, that somehow got changed to A, but it actually will be termed Resolution B. So this is to approve revisions to, the motion is to approve revisions to Resolution MO9, Section B. And the purpose and effect is to move forward in the effort to improve our candidate verification process for our Board of Directors elections. It has become evident to the board that we need to improve our processes for candidate verification for our Board of Elections. The proposed revisions to Resolution MO9 Attachment B aim to do this. This form has undergone one review by this board and multiple reviews by the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee. The current version, number 6, addresses the need for candidates to provide the association secretary with information required to verify that candidates meet the qualification requirements as currently set forth in our bylaws. Board discussions of the candidate qualifications and the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee emphasize the benefits of gathering information about candidate characteristics that are distinct from qualifications that would also be of interest to voters. This proposed form provides for gathering information about both candidate qualifications and candidate characteristics. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, Larry?
Yeah, the only question I have on this is under 2, section 2, where we're asking about the 10 years felony conviction, and are we, isn't the new bylaw deal with 5 years as opposed to 10 years?
Well, it's 5 years post satisfaction of penalties and restitution.
Okay.
So I think 10 years is probably a safe number. This is not a qualification question. It's an information question that may require follow-up.
Yeah, I understand that. I just thought that it should probably be consistent. But I agree that, if someone is on probation for 3 years, then it would push the time out but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be individual to each case
Sure.
that somebody might be involved in. So I think the bylaws committee felt that 10 years was a reasonable number.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor of approving this revision to attachment B, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any opposed? No, so this passes.
Or didn't vote.
I said aye.
Okay, next up is new business review of resolution B07, which has to do with petitions. The attached resolution is due for review per the schedule maintained by the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee. This discussion is to provide each director the opportunity to submit and discuss recommendations for revision. This resolution provides the format for petitions and the procedures for the submission of petitions to the Board of Directors. Does anybody have any proposed edits, revisions to this?
Just food for thought, under section 3B, you know, the petition must identify a person initiating a petition. Is there going to be any requirement that that individual must be a member of the Ocean Ponds Association?
It's a good point.
I would think you'd want to qualify that before you just, you know, because read literally, you know, somebody from, you know, Boston could come in and.
I believe that that's in our bylaws, isn't it? Jim, do you know? And Robert's rules for you to answer that question. I have the bylaws here.
And while Jim's looking, the second question, do we want to say a member or do we want to say an owner of record?
I think that's food for discussion. See what the bylaws say.
I don't see a specific, just very quick scan, 84.07, that says the person responsible for the petition has to be a member of the association. Anybody who signs the petition, of course, has to be an eligible member to vote on the day the petition is filed. I'm reading through here. Person shall shall identify the persons who will represent the petitioners and document the addresses and so forth. Information has to be a specific reference to the petitioner's qualifications in the sense of being a member in the petition, in the bylaws. I don't mean to laugh, but we kind of get over into the area of a little bit of the absurd when we think about somebody who's going to be a petitioner for something having to do with the ocean lines. And that would be acceptable.
Doug?
Yeah, well, Mark, Jen, the point is like, the reason I made the distinction, somebody's initiating a petition versus someone who is signing a petition, is that if we categorize it as you must be a member, are we violating any other state or federal law that would, you know, allow somebody through some legal process to submit a petition, even though they're not a member of Ocean Pines? I wonder if that's why it was left out. So I guess, you know, and yes, are we teetering on theater of the absurd? Yes, we are. But the idea here is that I wouldn't want to put something on there that could come back later and say, we didn't have the authority to do that. So that's why I asked the question, which is why we're having a discussion.
Larry, did you have
Yeah, I guess my question would be that someone is going to be authorized to present this if they're not a homeowner in Ocean Pines. They don't have the ability to speak at a meeting to make the presentation of the referendum or the petition. So I understand what you're saying, Doug, but I think I agree with Jim. We might be getting a little too in the weeds here.
Step a little bit further off than I should be, perhaps. But The question of how a resolution fits with the governing documents for the bylaws in particular has been a prior subject. Goes back a good 10 to 12 years when Mr. Moore was the counsel of the association, and there was a resolution issued, and 06 in particular, whether a provision was permissible in 06 relative to the bylaws itself. And it's my way of saying what he issued in his opinion is it must be consistent. The resolution must consistently apply the bylaws. It cannot alter the bylaws. And this is my opinion. To be, if we wanted to say in the resolution that it had to be a member of, that the person representing the petitioners had to be a member of the association. I personally would consider that consistent with the context of the governing documents, being the governing documents of the members of the association. That's my view of what we're talking about. If we want to put that in there, I personally think it would be acceptable.
Noted, thank you.
Okay. So are you requesting a revision based on this or just food for thought?
Let me take it offline. You know, I don't think it's that substantive of a change that, you know, we have to worry about it right now, but yeah, maybe I should chat with Jim a little bit more. I don't see any need right now, maybe, but let me think about it some more.
Okay. Jim, did you have any further?
You always have a resolution, whether before or after signature, submitted to the council's signature as well. We don't ask each resolution to be signed by legal. We have a provision that it can be submitted to legal for either review or signature after the fact, after it's completed. His view of that change.
So I think what we're left with is the question as to whether it would be advisable to add that language, and if there's anything in Maryland HOA law that would contradict that. So I'm going to propose that we do that research and we revisit this next month. And I will work with bylaws and resolutions, and if necessary, council to do that. Okay. The next one is resolution ML5, animal control. Reinstate Robert's rules. If I didn't, I'm doing that now. Yeah. Okay. Review of resolution ML5, animal control. The attached resolution is due for review per the schedule maintained by the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee. This discussion is to provide each director the opportunity to submit and discuss recommendations for revision. This resolution establishes the policy for fees related to the custody of animals by the Ocean Pines Police Department when they need to supplement county animal control officials. Is there anybody that has comment or Doug?
No, May, you're right in my wheelhouse here. Given that this hasn't been updated since February of 2010, the only thing I would guess as part of the review process is we take on the responsibility of going out to the county and the state to make sure that there haven't been any additional laws regarding animal control that have been passed that we've overlooked.
Can I comment?
Yes, I'll suspend Robert's rules.
I apologize. This kind of thing could have been brought forward in advance. In under authority A and C, there's no substantive change to any of these A, B, and C under two. A and C do have different code references now. It's no longer A, it's no longer Article 26, Section 6. It's actually the article is actually local government. The section is 21-806. That's a change in the code formatting, for lack of a better description. And in Section C, the criminal law article is 10-619. And frankly, I think that's actually a typo from the very beginning. 601 is definitions, but it doesn't say anything about dangerous dogs. 619 is totally about dogs and dangerous dogs. So those two have different references. None of the three have any substantive change.
Chief, have we, is there anything that you're aware of that has changed?
No, other than in the definitions, the titles stay the same, especially when we eliminated our own animal control officer. And we handle police calls as far as a police officer, not as an animal control officer, and then call the reference for county animal control. So it's still under the same statute and everything as required by the county. We don't supersede and we don't overextend any other ocean pine rules or regs above and beyond what the county already does. 9 times out of 10, we don't have an animal control officer. They did away with that position years ago. We'll go as an officer for that complaint. But if it's to be titled as a vicious animal, all of our reports are filed and those charges will be filed to that person through the county animal control officers department, not through our police department.
One more question for you, Chief. Are we even capable of executing 3A when that is, the animal can be placed in OPA facilities until such time as custody can be turned over to the county?
We still have the facilities to do that behind the administration building, the skateboard park. We still have kennels back there. There's still 4 kennels back there that if somebody picks one up and brings it in, we would house it back there. The old policy used to be to house it for 3 days. Somebody would come there to get it. They would pay an assessment or a fine on their assessment. We no longer do that. If we get an animal today at 2 o'clock, by 2:30, animal control is aware of it. They'll ask us to house it for a couple hours. If they come get it, take it to their facilities. We were getting into the liability issues of exposure. If it was cold weather, we can't take an animal in. So we completely eliminated that process years ago. So no, we do not even have the ability to, we go buy dog food and take care of those animals for 3 days and then send it to the county. If it's a lost animal today, it's plastered on social media and everything else. And we continue to do that until animal control has the ability to send somebody and then 100 complete under control.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll reinstate Robert's rules, Doug.
Yeah, just my recommendation would be based on what Jim Trumbull said, that we, have it updated and presented to us for first reading.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, next one is review of resolution M07, bulkhead and waterway maintenance. The attached resolution is due for review per the schedule maintained by the bylaws and resolutions advisory committee. This discussion is to provide each director the opportunity to submit and discuss recommendations for revision. And this resolution establishes OPA policies regarding the maintenance of bulkheads and waterways.
Under section 4A, the association shall provide or be responsible for maintaining the following minimum canal depths owned by an under control association. It tells you that. How do we make sure that we understand or collect the data to make sure that it meets these requirements, and B, what are the costs associated with that? C, the timeline associated with any remediation.
I think the Marine Advisory Committee does a survey periodically.
Yeah, well, that's the strand of the liaison to that. And what they did it voluntarily a couple of years ago. It has been discussed. It's not really formal yet, but the idea of doing that again has also been sort of informally discussed. But the idea is we're dealing with a formal requirement here, but I'm not sure that I see any specific required process to make sure that we meet this requirement all the time. So one of the things we probably need to look at is at least getting some level of formality to understanding what the canal depths are, because I'd hate to have somebody come back and say, well, wait a minute, I measured 24 inches. You guys are supposed to be at 36. When are you going to fix me?
The other thing that we should put in here is subject to regulatory approval, because I think in our current situation, we know that there are some canals that need dredged. And I believe we waited for 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Right, we actually have a list that was just approved, but it's been taken 2 years, you're right.
Right, I mean, again, Jim said, the theater to the absurd. Unfortunately, I think we visited over the last year. I don't want to be down in Worcester County Court defending why we're not dredging a canal when the Army Corps of Engineers says we can't do it and doesn't issue a permit.
Okay, so it sounds like we need some updated language on the canal.
Yeah, refer back to committee.
Larry?
Yeah, I just had one more comment. I think we should probably note in here the sections in Ocean Pines that we are not responsible for. I know it mentions it, but it doesn't identify those sections. And I think we should include that in here as part of the update.
Okay. Yes. Jim? Yes.
Director, I didn't quite hear what you said, so I've made a touch on the same thing. Again, Bylaws and Resolutions Committee has been pursuing these resolutions we're talking about for some time. And some of this could have been brought forward ahead of your meeting to consider, and it just didn't happen. I'd like to suggest that in particular in paragraph 5, consideration be given to some of that going into the archive. In particular, we're talking about a lower order does not remove, and this is in C or B rather, I'm sorry, 5B, doesn't remove the plantings and so forth, which association shall have their action as authority to take necessary action. It can also be put on your invoice, charge for having done that sort of thing. Those come under the heading of restrictions and rules that really need to be documented in a manner that if not in this resolution, if not in the ARC guidelines, for example, this resolution goes down to the homeowners association depository in the snow, and deposited there. And I don't really think we want to start putting resolutions in that depository down there. The more proper way would be a formal regulation type document such as the ARC guidelines. And then again, we have in 540, I'm sorry, the owner is responsible for what has already been built or going to be built, determining the sufficient depth to allow the water vehicle to come in and out to the docking facility. That again is something that not necessarily a restriction, but they ought to be in the ARC guidelines, at least for people who are applying for putting such a facility, a dock on there attached to their property. So I would recommend that consideration be given for putting some of this material in the ARC guidelines as being a restriction, rule, regulation of enforceable against members of the association.
Okay.
Whether or not in the meantime somebody might want to ask, John's not here, the GM to take his time putting that in the depository, that's another question.
Okay.
It's been this way for decades, so there's no sense of running out and making some immediate see the advance rush to do something. But a recommendation to consider taking material out of here into the ARC guidelines.
Okay. Okay, reinstate Robert's rules. Doug, it sounds like since you're liaison to Marine Advisory Committee, do you think you and your committee could take this on?
So noted.
Revisions. And then it will go back to bylaws. Each of these would go back to bylaws for a last look before we bring them back for first reading. Okay. And then the next one is review of OPA mission and vision statement. This is The topic is to review and consider either reaffirming or revising the current OPA mission and vision statement. Concise statement, the OPA mission and vision statement has not been reviewed or revision or reaffirmation since September 2012. Consideration should be given to doing so at this time. The OPA mission and vision statement reads as follows currently. The Board of Directors hereby reaffirms that the vision and mission of the Ocean Pines Association are as follows. Vision. Ocean Pines will be a premier resort community offering exceptional value and quality of life to property owners who are diverse in age, economic status, and interests. Mission. Provide the governance, administration, facilities, services, and amenities that are necessary to make Ocean Pines an attractive, affordable, safe, and enjoyable place to live and work. So this is being brought up primarily because it's kind of old. And secondly, some discussion came up in the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee when I was the liaison that perhaps based on the recent property owner survey, comprehensive survey, that we may want to revisit this. Any thoughts or comments on that? Amy?
I just wanted to let everyone know that the Strategic Planning Committee will be developing a recommendation for an updated vision statement. They hope to have that to the board no later than July 2022.
Oh, okay.
So they are working on that.
Okay, great. Okay, so top our plate for now. Next is a discussion on social media policy, Doug.
Yeah, the discussion topic is the development of a social media policy. The concise statement is the board should consider the benefits and effectiveness of a policy regarding the use of social media. Background, given the pervasive use of social media, the board should consider a policy to ensure information shared by directors on all social media platforms is consistent and reflects a recognized official position on matters. As directors post them on social media platform, there's a possibility that the reader could consider the particular social media platform as an official source of information for the community. It's important to make the distinction regarding an official OPA information source and other social media platforms available to the OPA membership.
Okay. Any thoughts on this?
Well, I'll start. This is in response to your request that we bring this up and start to talk about it with regard to all of the different venues now and platforms that are available for social media. And I guess maybe, and I'm generalizing here, that sometimes there's a source of confusion as to, where the official pieces of information regarding Ocean Pines reside. This is different than, as far as I'm concerned, it's different than posting some information on an event or a congratulatory aspect to somebody's thing. It's about specific information that's relevant to Ocean Pines, because I think it's very important that we make sure that the community knows, while we're not dismissing any of the other sources, that we do make sure that everybody is aware that there is an official information source. And I just kind of, if you really think about it, if we don't do something, then, people are left to their own recourse to decide, okay, I get all my information from this source, okay? And if it's from that source, maybe 99% of it's fine, but it's that 1% that might be, put us in a precarious situation, cause a conflict or something along those lines. And I just think we should be aware of that, that's all.
I guess my thought on this is, we had discussed among ourselves that perhaps, we agree, I guess we did make a consensus agreement that our personal postings on non-OPA websites would be factual information sharing, that sharing of information that's otherwise available on the OPA website or other governmental websites that have the authority over whatever topic we're posting, and that be referenced when we post. Is there an appetite for creating a policy regarding that, or Larry?
I just, why are we talking about putting a policy in place for, as Doug said, 1% of the people? we can't control the perceptions of people who believe that this website or this forum or, this newspaper is the official site of Ocean Pines. I think as a board, the board has agreed that official statements will come out through the president. And we also agreed that any postings we put on any social media site would be factual. And I'm just loath to start making procedures because a couple people, 1%, are confused. I would venture to say more than 1% people are confused, but establishing more policies just for that reason, I don't think it's necessary.
Well, and at the risk, quite frankly, I didn't really appreciate the public comment today. It probably should have happened in a different forum. All right, I'll go on record saying it, but just think about that public comment that was made. Perhaps, we could have avoided that should we had some more guidance is all I'm saying. Maybe we, as much as you want to, provide information, get misinterpreted. And that's all I'm saying. If we stick to the official sources, or at least establish official sources, I think that goes a long way in hopefully preventing something like that.
I certainly.
I was just going to say, I agree with Larry, and truth hurts. I mean, it is what it is. You give facts, facts are facts. And that's all I have to say. I agree with him.
I respect both points of view on this, but I want to, four of us sitting up here, okay, specifically Doug, Larry, Colette, and myself, have dealt with this. And in my mind, this ain't rocket science, okay? Last year, we were given some very controversial information about a member of the association. And Larry, I think very appropriately said, if you want more information on this, contact the attorney. And this is what the attorney told us. And for the seven of us sitting up here, it makes common sense that doesn't need a policy. Number one, he said, speak for yourself only and make sure you're speaking for yourself only. Number two, avoid rumor, speculation, innuendo, or coattailing on it. And he said, number three, if you're asked a specific question about that, you owe this person nothing, but give only factual information available in the public domain. If you follow those guidelines, we're in good shape. If you don't follow those guidelines, we're not in good shape. And it's just common sense. I don't think we need to write common sense down as a policy. I mean, just an opinion.
Richard, did you have any comments about this?
Yeah, I was going to make a comment. I went ahead and submitted a policy draft to the board regarding social media, and I would ask that you could take a look at that. If you don't have it readily available, I can send it to you after this meeting to refresh your memory. But I think it's something that we should definitely take a look at.
Okay, I guess, historically, Doug, you and I have been on the board together for almost 4.5 years, and you've been an individual who consistently has said, let's not create, bureaucratic burden for ourselves. And this, a policy such as this may be considered a bureaucratic burden for us for enforcement. And I think what we have done in the past is we have discussed in our director orientation meeting, general expectations for how we conduct the business that we conduct as directors, but also how we conduct ourselves as directors. And I think this is a practice that could be discussed at that point. I certainly welcome the opportunity to review what Rick has sent us or will be sending us And I think kind of building on the discussion that we had in the orientation meeting this year, maybe come up with a consensus agreement on what we expect of ourselves in this regard. That would be my preference over a policy.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I think we're basically saying the same thing. Policy sounds so stringent, you know, the idea here of at least having it documented what the expectations are of a director posting on social media. Frank, I would agree with your comment regarding common sense, but I dare to say, and people can hate me for it, not everybody that walks up here and sits has common sense. So, you know, and it's hard to measure. So the idea, at least if we have something to fall back on that can be referenced in the form of a document. You want to call it a policy, and you're afraid of that word, let's just call it guidance. Okay. The idea is having something that we can reflect on, so it's be consistent. Remember, we're talking about things that can go from board to board to board. Okay. That's the idea of just trying to create something to stimulate that thought to say, okay, now I understand what we agreed to. Maybe we don't take that approach and do it a little bit different way.
If we did codify this.
To that end, with what Doug said, I moved that our time would be better served by developing a code of conduct or rules of conduct and a code of ethics. We had discussed that somewhat in the past, something like the park has, and a social media could be put in with that. And that way it would be a consistent document from board to board to board.
So a resolution.
Well, just developing a code of ethics and rules of conduct. You know, the park has like a one-page sheet and it outlines everything. And I think that would be a good thing for us to have.
Frank?
We have a policy to that effect that we get added to right now that really defines.
You mean a resolution that we already have? We
Yeah, I
don't
think
really have a
it's one of the
resolution.
B resolutions.
Well, we had BOH that had a code of conduct, but it had some bureaucratic.
Wade's history.
stuff that
Yeah,
caused
no, we
us
don't want to
to
reinstitute
rescind
BOA,
it.
no. But I thought that, you know, under the, well, I guess we could put it under a conflict of interest, maybe not. Maybe that would be a bad idea. But if we're going to codify it, we should take the attorney's advice that he gave us, and that would be the guidelines for us in some B form of resolution.
Okay, and Larry?
Yeah, so we've been down this road with the code of ethics. You know, BOA, while the intention was good, was a disaster. By putting a policy, making this a policy, we have no enforcement mechanism if someone decides to, you know, go against this policy. So I just think this is just creating problems where they don't exist at this point.
Well, I think, you know, I think Frank's comment is something to consider, and that is to go back to council who had an opinion about BO8 and the problems with BO8. But there also is reference in our bylaws to the presence of a resolution that may provide us some enforcement. And so I think, you know, I think Amy's suggestion, you know, simply a code of conduct that might address it to something like this. I think what I'd like to do is consult with Jeremy and ask counsel for his wisdom on taking the approach in a different way than was done with BO8. The problem with BO8 really had to do with the enforcement piece of it, that there was no due process, or due process was not clearly articulated, and there was a lot of inconsistencies, I guess one might say, in how one might have interpreted that. So I don't know, I guess what I'm proposing is that we do further study on this, consult with Jeremy, and maybe come back with more concrete proposal. What do you think? Amy, do you want to lead the charge on this?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
And Amy, I'll go ahead and send you what I had drafted as more of a guideline. You can kind of take a look at it. And as I mentioned to the rest of the board, it was only a draft. And the further discussion can take place with it and any kind of edits to make it to a form.
Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
Okay, next we have discussion on tree removal policy. Richard, that's yours.
Yes, the topic is the tree removal occurring without OPA, CPI, and ARC required protocols for approval. The group discussion ensued regarding public concerns of tree removals without regard to prescribed protocols. After further and in-depth discussion, it is apparent there are inconsistent practices regarding tree removal requests, permitting, application process, and apparent widespread abuse by both homeowners and tree service companies. A little background on this is that there's been social media and community forums posts were read to the committee, the ARC committee. There were posts that were generated by committee members referencing tree removal services. Specific methods and workarounds were described by performing tree removals without proper permitting and approvals. The overall media posts or messages indicated tree work was occurring without reference to homeowner-initiated applications or following the required ARC protocols regarding pre-approved inspections and site permitting for tree removal. Specifically, homeowners were not made did not make actual applications for the associated requests for the tree removal or follow required ARC protocols regarding tree removal process. So this was brought up to the ARC committee, and I'm not sure if John, our chair is, he mentioned that he'd be speaking further on this, but it seems that there is, as I indicated, there is a lot of tree removal that's going on that is not going through our proper protocols that we have set forth. And it's not going up through the ARC on getting these particular approvals by some tree removal companies utilizing specific permits that actually haven't gone through the whole process.
I guess the question is for our CPI guys. You know, if they recognize that trees are being taken down without the appropriate processes, what's happening? Are we going after the homeowners? I don't think we have the ability to go after the tree service. And if we're not going after them, why not? So, John, I don't know if you want to address it, or Colette, if you want to, CPI guys are here.
Yeah, Linda, do you want to? Josh.
Yeah, so the issue is that right now, when it comes to a contractor, there is no specific penalty against them if they were to move the tree. The only penalty that we could apply would be to the homeowner. And that would be for them to replant said trees that they removed. By that, we go by the county standards of point system. So there's a long list of different things that they can replant back into the property, not necessarily the same tree, just has to equal the same point system on the property. And of course, you know, the way plants go is that they could say, yeah, of course, I bought, you know, $15,000 worth of plants. Here they are. I put them in my yard. 6 months from now, are they dead? Unfortunately, we don't have enough staffing to keep up with the 6-month reinspection.
And that's really the point I'm trying to raise here is.
With how many have happened is what I'm trying to say.
First off, I don't think we have the authority to do anything to the contractors.
No, we don't.
And I think that's what you're looking for here. And I don't think we can do that. So, and then secondly, if, you know, we don't have the staff to re-inspect, and I went through that process when I remodeled my house, and it's a 2-year takes
Establish the tree.
the county takes 2 years to come back and take a look. I mean, if the problem is the homeowners are having trees taken down without the permits or approval, then we need to deal with the homeowner. I just don't see us dealing with the tree services. And then the second point I had here, limiting it to Monday to Friday, I understand what the thought process is, but the problem is that, the tree companies are very busy and, sometimes it takes months to get them to come in and do that. And we're now going to arbitrarily tell tree contractors when they can and cannot work. I think we're stepping into a bucket of stuff here that we don't need to step into.
Yes.
I kind of agree with Larry because let me tell you a story that I'm aware of. Part of the state, the Columbia Association, a developer cut down, I think it was like 30 or 40 trees without permission in the Columbia Association. Now, those of you that are familiar with it, it takes a little bit different approach than the Eastern Shore approach toward enforcing its rules. So what they did, which is something that we could do, they took the developer to court and they won a judgment where the developer had to replant trees, same number, same size that are removed. And that's about $10,000 a tree. So if you want to do that kind of draconian enforcement, that's available to us right now under current declaration of restrictions. I don't see a sense of community appetite for that, but I think this opens up a whole bunch of questions about our DRs and how they're enforced. And this is not just a criticism, this is just fact life, okay? Today work goes on 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if we're only available to inspect something Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, it's pretty easy to circumvent an inspection. Just do it on a Saturday or Sunday or after work hours.
Right.
Okay? I mean, that's common knowledge.
Right.
So we can change that by changing the number of hours that we have to enforce our rules. And the second thing is the appetite for enforcement. The problem with our declaration of restrictions is right now, when we enforce them, it is, I've said it 100 times and I'll say it again, it is like writing ourselves a $1,500 ticket because the homeowner doesn't have to pay anything and we pay all the costs for the attorney and for the court fees. So there's only one way to get out of that, and that is to develop something entirely different than we do today for enforcement and for fining homeowners. And the last time that was brought up, there was considerable pushback, understandably, from the community because, that requires a bit of trust between the community and the association and associates management and the board. So right now we're dealing with a situation that's kind of, it essentially is voluntary. I mean, because from a regulatory standpoint, I can't recall us ever taking somebody in the time that I've lived here, reading about it in the papers, where we've ever taken somebody to court for taking down a tree illegally. And until we decide to change that one way or the other, we're going to be faced with that situation. Now, short term, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but generally I'll give you a rule. There's nothing preventing the 7 of us from right now voting to put fines in for those sections that have been developed basically post 1995. We could do that, but that's not going to apply to all of Ocean Pines. So I think the ball basically comes back to our court as a management team and as an association board. How do you want to handle violations of the Declaration of Restrictions? To get, and this is what the community tells us, that when they call with a complaint for declaration of restriction, they want it fixed immediately. So do we want to go down that path? Or do we want to continue as we have since really the community has been founded? And that plows some tough ground, guys.
John?
So, when I saw this motion or whatever, and first of all, I agree with Larry and with Frank and any other comments that came from the board on this or the whole situation. We do utilize some of the major players, in which I have my guys and we're going to talk to them. Because then we just won't utilize them for the work that we do. So I'm trying that approach because with Larry and Frank, at least from what I'm seeing, is correct on a little bit. I don't know how you limit them on weekends and all this other stuff, but so we are trying that. Obviously, we have to give out permits also. And there's ways we can do that, but he's right. We are limited in resources. So we are trying to do some. Best I have right now.
Yes, sir.
I'm John Dillard from Cpi. Okay, I just have a couple of comments about the general thing. One is that we wanted to get this problem out in front of you so you would be aware of how completely out of hand this has been getting lately. And you remember a couple of years ago, we redid the guidelines where we dealt with some things that needed to be clarified. And quite honestly, we're looking at doing that again. We've been working with these guidelines for the last couple of years. We found some areas that need to be tweaked again. We'll go through the same process and we'll a format that we would like you guys to look at, and you can look at it. Problem with this is, this can't wait. We need something to beef this up right now. We've thrown some suggestions out to do it. We know we can't go against the contractor. We know the only folks we can go against are the property owners. Property owners are just totally ignoring the whole process. Josh, we drive around, see trees being knocked down, almost totally down, no permit, no inspection, no nothing. So we're playing a huge catch up here. We're trying to get something out in front to make people aware that they can't do this. The other thing is, as far as the sections that allow fines, that you're right. Right now, there's no system for fining in there as far as I know. I don't know when they kick in. I don't know what the dollar amounts, but that's something that their DRs they require the board to do. Quite honestly, from CPI and ARC's point of view, those sections are little to no problem. Those sections don't create the problems that we see that we're dealing with right now. It's only the ones that we really don't have anything other than really pushing it to the legal route to really enforce what's going on. Linda said there are 51 cases in legal right now. We have a handful of open violations, a bunch of complied violations. So we're talking about, like Mr. Perone's talking about, we're talking about a small amount of people out of 8,000 some lots that we have to deal with. But those folks need to do something to keep them out of legal if we can possibly do it. And there's a couple things that are out there that I'd like to point out. In resolution M04, that's the one that deals with lot payments. Right now, Mr. Viola, as general manager, can authorize an agent or an employee of Ocean Ponds to go on a property, cut down grass, weeds, get rid of, I'll call it natural debris, take care of the trees that's falling down and isn't being taken care of without any action from the board. The second thing that can happen, and it's a little more complicated, is, and it takes the board to approve it, but with a 2/3 majority vote of the board, an employee or an agent of Ocean Pines can be authorized to go on a property to get rid of trash. Now that's a little touchy, and actually that event is actually described. You've got to be a little careful there. We have to use that, sparingly, I suppose.
What's that have to do with us with tree removal?
The trees.
What's that have to do with tree removal?
I'm just throwing things out that we're dealing with right now. It doesn't have anything to do with tree removal. What does have something to do with tree removal is there are, And the Ocean Pines Inc. articles of amended and restatement, section 6, paragraph 8. Upon declaration of a violation, the board has the ability to suspend voting rights and membership and use of amenities during the period of the open violation. That, in my opinion, is the only thing we have on an interim basis to try to encourage people to comply before we go to legal roads. And I'm not talking about being overly punitive. These things are already in writing. It's not to do policy. And in my opinion, for a property owner to deal with a open violation in the Ocean Pines world is a benefit to them and to us from a cost standpoint. I don't think they realize what it's like if we go to court and get a quote. That's a whole other layer of headache for them. But quite honestly, we're out of our hands at that point. So that's just.
Okay, I'm going to reinstate the rules.
Who's the gentleman speaking?
John Dilworth,
Chairman of the ARC Committee, John Dilworth.
John what?
Dilworth, Chair of the ARC Committee.
Chair of ARC, okay.
Yes, so I'm reinstating Robert's rules. So we've got a lot of food for thought here. We've got some things that have clearly been identified that we can't do. Amy?
I had one more thought regarding the suggestion for attaching a fee of $115. I'm worried that that fee might have the unexpected consequence of just furthering non-compliance. And it's not going to be enough to hire the people that you need. So I'm not sure that that fee is actually a good idea.
Yeah, so I think what we have here is, there are a lot of remedies for consideration here that were put forth by the committee, I guess. And it looks like few, if any of them, are viewed at this point as having the potential for being effective or doable, either one. I think what John has tried to do with the tree service companies, I can attest that I experienced that with tree work that I had done. The providers said, you need to get an Ocean Pines permit to do this work or we won't do it. So I think that is having some effect. So I think what we really need is for the committee to work with the staff to come forth with any recommendations that they have that are doable within our governing documents. And that one paragraph in the charter maybe is our only tool. And if you could come forth with working with your liaison to come forth with a motion for consideration for something that is doable and has the potential for success, the board will consider that.
One other point.
Frank?
One other point, John, for your committee to consider and for John and his team to consider. We are very close, right, to starting off the process of changing the declaration of restrictions to address short-term rentals. Who knows how it's going to turn out, okay? The only reason I'm bringing that point out to you is the infrastructure to do that is much different than a vote, like for a referendum or to sit somebody on the board. There's a lot of setup for it, okay? It's more administration than you would think, the average person would think. And it's something that we haven't done, I don't know, since maybe the Indians were patrolling out on the golf course, okay? And you're dealing with sensitive issues because the last sentence in there says the ability to levy fines. And that would cover the sections that don't have that, okay? Just as a suggestion for ARC to consider, I don't think this community has anywhere near any appetite to say fines for violation of declaration of restrictions is a good idea. But I believe if you got together with stakeholders, like realtors, and asked them questions like, what property violations really causes problems for neighbors when they're trying to sell their house in terms of home valuation, because our job as an association is to protect home value. If you came with a narrow list of changes, you could possibly tag on to the infrastructure that we're already setting up. And I think the board would consider putting a motion forth to put that in front of the people. Because once we spend the money to get the infrastructure going for the short-term rentals, asking another question, it's like we're almost riding for free. But my caution to you is this: if there's something there that says you're going to find somebody for moss on the roof or grass too high, it'll go down like that.
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, you can't find somebody for something they can go out and scrape off a roof or a trash can that's by the street.
Right.
I mean, that's, you don't do that.
But if you come up with big ones that have persistently caused problems, like building in an easement, building on somebody else's property, okay, cutting down a tree that takes 40 years to replace, and that list is very narrow and very well defined, you may have more community support than otherwise would be the case. But no guarantees.
Do you think it's ignorance in the people? They just don't know about the tree cutting? Because it seems like Friday night, 6 o'clock hits, you know, the trucks pull up and the chainsaws go. I mean, it's.
I don't think it's ignorance.
No.
Personal experience is that, you know, 3 years ago, a gal stood in front of this board and she was in tears because of something that was going on next to her. And my attitude was not on my watch. And we went after it like it's not going to happen on my watch. And I want to tell you something. Out of the 8,452 lot owners in this community, 8,400 of them are absolutely intent on following the rules and do so. And if you tell them they're breaking a rule, they make corrections. The other 52 are connivers that know how to game the system. And then if we had to and we forced it, they would take us to the Maryland Court of Special Appeals. They're that cunning and they're that conniving. They know what goes on when, they know how to circumvent the system. We have one case where since 2008, there have been tagged vehicles. We take them to court. The minute that we appear in court, the vehicles disappear. The judge dismisses the case. Okay, 2 days later, the cars reappear and you start another year cycle.
Wow. I'm sorry about that.
I was going to suspend Robert's rules one more time. I think Josh had something.
Just to the point what Amy was saying about why we were asking, or at least why we brought up the fact that we should charge for the permit, is that on a daily basis, I do between 18 and 20 tree removals. That takes up a good 45 to 50% of my day in just trees that are free. It is a free permit. And it was a twofold where it was, for one, for all the labor that we're putting into it was the cost for that permit. And that is the lowest that we would charge for any permit, actually. That's just administrative fee with inspection fees. That doesn't include the additional deposit. Those wouldn't even have deposits on them. That was why that was brought up, plus the fact that maybe it would deter some people from thinking that, oh, it's a free permit anyway, I don't need to get it. And there's really no repercussions for it. So that was a twofold, is why we presented that.
Well, I want to make a comment on that. Let's remember, nothing here is free.
Right.
And the association members are paying assessments that go to your salary. So let's,
But I'm saying they're paying for 50% of tree removals a day.
Yeah, again, if John thinks he needs more staff, that's another issue. But, to reference it as free, let's not do that.
But I understand the mindset. So reinstate Robert's rules. We've charged Mr. Dilworth with what we would like to see come out of ARC. And that would include working with staff on their recommendations.
Okay.
Trying to come up with stuff that would have a likelihood of being effective and passing. Okay, thank you.
And if you need some help, call me.
Next, we have discussion of HB 882, Doug.
Discussion of the possible endorsement of House Bill 882. The board may want to consider submitting an official statement to endorse House Bill 882. The background, it's been brought to the board's attention by members of the Rec and Parks Advisory Committee to consider sending a letter on behalf of Ocean Pines to officially support House Bill 882, which authorizes expansion of wildland boundaries and planning for a raised walking/biking trail through the Pocomoke State Forest to the town of Snow Hill. So, I was asked to bring this forward. Actually, we had passed an email amongst us. There's some information that has gone, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I know there was Debbie Donahue is aware of this, as well as Patty Stevens. And so the idea is, and I brought one of the emails that they basically said, thank you for your interest and questions. The project has been in the works for several years. It has already been through 2 rounds of public input and comments, including from environmental and naturalists, and they've been overwhelmingly positive, including from groups like Lower Shore Land Trust and Assateague Coastal Trust. So there's already a groundswell of support for this, and we just wanted to kind of discuss amongst ourselves whether or not we should go make an official support of House Bill 882.
Amy?
Some comments. This is a trail for pedestrian and bikes only. The third reading was just on March 17th. It's due to be finalized on October 1st, 2022. The proposal is increasing the wildlands. The way Ocean Pines falls into this, or might fall into this project, is that in the future, it could allow a future trail between Snow Hill and Berlin. My concern in sending a letter of support is that HB 882 does not impact Ocean Pines directly. If you send a letter of support, it goes along with the letters of support that Delegate Hartman's already sent, and it supports the State Highway Administration, including separate lanes for bike pedestrians and the planning of the replacement or renovation of Route 90 bridge. That is not included in H882, but that is something that does directly affect Ocean Pines. Governor Hogan has already authorized funding for the preliminary study on the Route 90 bridge. As I said, it does directly affect OP, as the Route 90 bridge has a major crossing at 589 in what essentially is the middle of Ocean Pines, and it divides our community in 2 parts. Without a safe walkway, it's unsafe for our homeowners to cross this intersection and go to the library, post office, stores, elementary school, etc. So Ocean Pines has a direct interest in the Route 90 bridge. I'm not sure that we do have a direct interest in H882 right now, because if it goes through, we might in the future, if they then again get permission to connect Snow Hill and Berlin. So I'd like us to move that Ocean Pines send a letter of support, definitely regarding the renovation or replacement of the Route 90 bridge.
Frank?
I think this is one of these areas where I think we need to first stay in our own lane. We deal with Ocean Pines. What goes on in Berlin, other communities that surround us, no mas. I don't think we have any business getting involved with that. Saying that, as a board and as an association, saying that, I would support an online petition put up by Josh for our homeowners and residents, because this deals with not a homeowner's situation. This deals with voters in the state of Maryland to sign an online petition that we could forward in support of this. Because then we're keeping out of it as an association, but we're certainly saying that as a taxpayer and as a resident of Worcester County, if you want to support this, sign it and we can provide that vehicle and do so without getting into business that really, you know, deals with the town of Snow Hill or other communities.
Doug?
So, yeah, and just for the record, the fact that I brought this up doesn't mean I'm in support of it. I was asked to do so. I do agree with Frank. I think we need to focus on the issues of Ocean Pines. Now, if by focusing on the issues of Ocean Pines, it starts to be inclusive of some areas external to Ocean Pines, we should at the very least be aware of that. But unless there's some specific benefit, you know, to doing this, I would prefer to stay in our lane. I like that approach. But again, you know, maybe, again, it's only a topic for discussion right now. The idea would be that, you know, look at it and say, if we don't support it, are there any negative repercussions? And if we do support it, are we making any commitments that we shouldn't be making? Don't know for sure, but I think further discussion is advised. Again, that's why it's a discussion topic and not a motion or anything like that. But I do agree that I don't like being one to overstep the bounds. And again, if we stay focused on the business of Ocean Pines, I think that's the defensible position.
Larry?
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, I think this is a great project. It doesn't affect Ocean Pines, and I don't think we ought to be, taking a position on it.
I agree with Amy's statement and the fact, also with what Doug was saying. It's good to know what's happening in our environment, in our neighbors, but we should stay in our own lane.
I would agree, and I also agree that once the Route 90 issue comes up, that would affect us.
That directly affects us.
Yeah, and that should.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
We would have a reason to support. Okay, so next we have motion for mailbox investigation and field test. Joseph?
The motion is for the general manager to investigate and recommend 3 locations for the design, construction structures to cover existing mailboxes. 1 location must be between Route 90 Bridge and the North Gate. The second between the Route 90 Bridge and Manklin Creek. The third between Manklin Creek and the southern end of Ocean Parkway. This investigation must include a specific plan for the design, permitting, construction and life cycle cost, as well as the community response for the project, i.e. approval, disapproval, and perceived benefits and disadvantages. Upon completion of the investigation, the general manager is to present a recommendation by June 1st, 2022. Is that date still good, Frank?
Mm-hmm.
I had questioned that, forgive me. To proceed immediately with the project to include in the 2023-2024 budget or to abandon the project. So the purpose and effect is to provide specific information as to the cost and benefit of covering all mailbox locations within Ocean Pines and to gather information regarding community approval or disapproval of constructing these structures. The background is the issue of providing structures at the existing mailbox locations comes up on a reoccurring basis. The purpose of this project is to provide an actual cost, maintenance information, and community approval/disapproval for construction of these structures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have. You know, I'm not going to support this motion. You know, John has numerous times looked into the cost of this thing. We have determined that putting structures around the mailboxes is going to be millions of dollars. And then the maintenance costs on top of that. I mean, we're beating this horse to death over and over and over again. And, you know, I just don't see it. You know, you're making a motion to have John, you know, reinvent the wheel that he's done 3 or 4 times already. And you know, the information has been put out to the community. The project of putting these structures over the mailboxes has come up through the Budget and Finance Committee several times. And the board has taken a position over the last few years, the expense, it's not warranted. So you know, I just don't see, first off, I don't think we need incur the expense of putting these structures around the mailboxes. John's in the process of replacing them. This is just a cost I don't think we need to incur. So I don't think we need to task John with redoing this again. And so unfortunately, I can't support, I'm not going to support this motion.
Yeah, a couple things. I'm actually going to agree with Larry. We've been down here, and I think in the previous board meetings, we discussed the idea of approaching, getting the poles, getting the concrete bases fixed. I think we should let that particular aspect run its course and then take another look at that, because we agreed that the expense in doing that was reasonable, and it would certainly produce results, all right? And at that point, we could relook at it and say, did it produce the results we wanted, or did it fall short? I would very much want that process to continue, and I don't want to support this as a motion. The second part of it too is that is there any cost associated, with just conducting the assessment? Or conducting this research? Are we boring any additional costs that we don't really need to do because some, if not all, this work's been done already? So nothing wrong with it. I'm just not going to support it for those reasons.
Frank?
If we have the information as to exactly what these things would cost and the permitting and everything like that, I would agree with you. But it seems to come up on a recurring basis, and I don't know what we'd exactly have to do. And maybe just it's the information that is available is just to say, okay, look, if you want to cover the mailboxes, it's going to cost X number of millions of dollars, and it's going to take X long. And oh, by the way, while we're tearing up the mailboxes and building structures over them and getting permits and everything like that, you're going to have another problem, and that's going to be delivering the mail. Maybe we don't need anything more than those facts codified to take care of the issue. But if it comes up on a recurring basis, then we should have the standard answer. And it seems like we have the answer maybe, but I'm not so sure that the message is out, if you understand what I'm saying. But if we've discussed in a budget and finance, Larry, and they have numbers that show that it's, in the referendum stratosphere, then yeah, the approach makes sense. We just need to get that information out to people.
Okay, anybody else? My thought is that if we have these numbers, maybe we could justify doing a mini survey using that Survey Monkey technology that we pay for. Putting out, this is what it's going to cost. This is, what the permitting process is going to cost, and see what the membership says. That gets it out to everybody. We may or may not agree with what the membership says, but at least we get them to commit that this is what it'll cost you, what would need to be added to your assessment to pay for this if we do it. I don't know. I could get behind that, but I couldn't get behind this motion. Doug?
To your point was, and I don't recall because I didn't memorize it, but has this topic, or was this topic even touched on during the survey done by the Strategic Planning Committee?
No.
No, it wasn't? Okay.
No, Mailboxes was not.
Yeah. Did you have something you wanted to say about this?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. One, and I agree with a lot of things that were said. We put a program in, board tasked me with it to clean them up, to replace all the pedestals, and I think we have well over 100 that we're working on. Just getting the material, just getting the labor. We're going to obviously utilize our labor. That's a lot right now, and I think that's a win when we get that. Certainly the concrete pads, there's X amount, I don't remember how many that we need to fix, but we've done that. As far as we did do studies, Larry's right, and this numerous times, and I agree with everything he said. Obviously, I would have to go back because a lot has changed in the last year. And you can see as cost has gone up, getting the material. I would have to look at it again, and then I got to put manpower on it. I'm just saying, it's a lot right now. We have a program. Let's finish that out. I think it's a win when we get that, certainly. Let's see what happens and what we learned from that. As far as cleaning them up, replacing the pedestals, replacing whatever mailboxes aren't. We have to go through the post office with a lot, which is taking an effort and time. As well as that's going to be our manpower there. A lot of it, the concrete pads, that'll be outsourced. There's a lot there.
Okay, we ready to vote on this? All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you for bringing up the discussion.
Thank you.
I do believe that we could get a canned response developed, maybe budget and finance.
Try to get an estimate on what it is to do one as an example, a model.
Yeah, and I think as
they're working on the other pieces of it, we can try to get one and get it, so you just have some idea.
I mean, it gets brought up a lot, and if we had an idea of what the costs were initially, and then if you refer that back to, well, your fees that you're paying annually would be.
So I think getting a canned response will help.
John's done it, so.
Okay, so we're.
Okay, I think the board is
Half hour.
what we're doing, so.
Okay, topic is closed. Next topic is motion for intersection lighting test.
My turn on the rack.
Yeah.
For the general manager to investigate and recommend 6 intersections along Ocean Parkway for the installation of lighting and reflectors. Again, 2 locations between the Route 90 Bridge and North Gate, 2 between the Route 90 Bridge and Manklin Creek Road, and the 3rd between Manklin Creek and the southern end. And the investigation specific plans to capture the total cost, life cycle cost, community response, and the approval, disapproval of the project, via feedback from the people and surveys by the strategic planning committee. And when this test is completed, to come to us with what I call now in the motion here, a shovel-ready project, either in a recommendation to either move forward immediately, abandon it entirely because it's a bad idea, or to put it into next year's budget. And the purpose and effect is to provide the information as to the cost and benefits of lighting the intersections. And the background is, again, this is something that comes up recurring, and I hear people say, well, when I drive around at night, I can't, there's difficulty. And I can attest with my eyes, there's some difficulty when you're driving around at night.
Right.
Okay.
And it's just to get the specifics of what this would be and what it would cost and how long it would take.
Is there a second? Okay.
Wow. I'll second. How about you?
Are you seconding it for?
I can second it. I should have.
So can I just need to ask, I just want to make sure I'm following this thing. Are you talking about the solar lighting that you asked me about?
Yeah, it could be, John, I think there's 2 things. There's lighting. I'm not sure that lighting's the answer, period. Okay.
Well, I agree. Well,
okay, it could be solar lighting. The other day, there's electrical wires running up and down all our streets, right, for the houses. But this comes up periodically, but for somebody to put cost, I heard millions of dollars.
Correct.
Which, by the way, I think it's millions of dollars.
Correct.
If you did electric. Okay.
I've heard.
But
I've sat through this.
And now the reflectors are a different situation because the reflectors go on to pavement and are illuminated by headlights.
Right.
Okay. So it's either something that, again, it's the kind of thing that comes up recurring, and let's either put a stake in the heart of it and say it's too expensive to ever consider.
Right.
Or it's something worth trying. And by the way, you might try them and people might say, it's a terribly bad idea, it doesn't work.
Right.
And we might find the lights don't work, or the reflectors don't work, or the cost doesn't work, or the maintenance doesn't work. But it puts it to bed. And I think that's one of the things we have to do with some of these issues is either do them or put them to bed and euthanize them.
Amy.
This was a question on the last survey. 38.6% were extremely or very interested in street lighting, but that does not tell the whole story. The highest percentage in the 5 rankings was the 28.02% that stated that they were not interested at all in improved street lighting. In fact, 60.44% showed no interest or only a slight or moderate interest in street lighting. I think it's also important to look how residents view Ocean Pines' environmental and sustainability efforts. 76.01% of respondents view this as extremely important. Street lighting will forever change Ocean Pines. It isn't just the large initial expense in maintenance, but we also have to consider the increased energy usage. There are other environmentally friendly options. Frank mentioned road light reflectors. They've come a long way in recent years. They're more durable. There are plenty of options for reflectors that are able to withstand snow plows. Unlike street lighting, these can be color coded and even help fire departments find hydrants easily. There's also environmentally friendly options. The United Kingdom uses stark half disc on many roadways. These are small discs that absorb solar energy even during the day. There's downward facing globe light fixtures that are solar that limit light pollution. So I don't think the community is in fact supporting increased light. I think there's a few people who are vocal, but the majority have no interest in increased or any street lighting whatsoever.
Larry?
Again, I'm not going to support this. You know, I don't think we need to task the general manager to do this type of investigation when we've got other more important things going on. And we're getting ready to get into the busy season, you know, and I'm glad Amy brought up the strategic or the survey results. I just see this as unnecessary and a waste of time at this point. And the cost again, I mean, think about what we discussed on the signs, the message boards that we were talking about in the community and how much that was going to cost. This, you know, I just don't think it's something we need to be looking at this point. We've got enough going on. John's busy enough and his staff is busy enough to be, I think, wasting our time looking at something like this. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and again, first of all, I agree with Larry, a lot of the points. You know, and some people want lights and everything, but at what cost? You don't have that in the survey. The roads and everything, you know, maybe those cat eyes with the solar, I think I've seen that before. But the cost on this, I don't know if you need it for the roads. I said about the signs, sometimes people can't read the signs. I can't read the signs, but you got GPS today. Everybody's got GPS. I agree with Larry on this. As I mentioned, the team is fully engaged. We're delivering every time we come in here, every month, to start shifting, and we've added things, the mailboxes, we've added others. It's just, everybody's fully engaged.
Okay, so I can get behind the idea of another canned response to the people who bring this up repeatedly, but I also will not be supporting this motion.
Yeah, look, if we have the response that when it comes up that this thing is going to cost X number of dollars and take X number of times, and I'm happy with withdrawing the motion. But again, it's another issue that comes up periodically. And when we see these issues that recycle every 5 and 10 years, and I really, whether they're mailboxes, whether it's lighting intersections or whatnot, we should put a stake in the heart of it and put it to bed permanently.
Okay, I'll task myself with working with our general manager to come up with a canned.
Advisory committee, they should be, this is the stuff they should be evaluating and calculating, to be honest with you.
I have one more comment. Yeah, Frank, I appreciate what you're saying, but the bottom line is this issue has come up over and over again. And every time the board changes, somebody decides this is the issue they want, it will come up again. We're never going to put a snake in the heart of that baby.
Create a template and just send it out.
Okay, this topic is closed.
It's
Next
closed.
one, motion
Failed.
for revision to owner of records referendum question. This motion is to adopt the recommendation from the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee to have council develop the appropriate wording for a referendum to amend the bylaws to a new section 1.11 of the bylaws to read as follows. Section 1.11, owner of record means the persons listed on the deed recorded in the land records of Worcester County as the owner of property, grantee party and second part within the subdivision to which votes are attributable. If a trust is listed on the deed recorded in the land records of Worcester County as the owner of the property within the subdivision, then the owner of record shall be the trustees or co-trustees of the trust who is or are listed on the recorded deed to such property. The purpose and effect is to alter the proposed bylaws recommendation pertaining to the definition of owner of record. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the background on this is that considerable discussion was had by members of the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee regarding the proposed revision of the definition of owner of record in advance of the public hearing on the bylaws revision referendum. The committee unanimously agreed that the definition should separate the issue of trustee ownership of property and property owners who are owners of LLCs, corporations, or similar entities that own property in Ocean Pines. The position is that the owner of a corporate entity serving on the board of directors, unlike a trustee owner or an individual owner, has an inherent conflict of interest between their fiduciary duties to their corporate entity and their duty of loyalty to Ocean Pines Association. They believe that this conflict is unreconcilable and should make them ineligible for consideration as a candidate or appointee to the OPA Board of Directors, and therefore exclude them from the definition of owner of record in our bylaws, since it pertains only to board candidate qualifications. This position was represented by the chair at the hearing, and a revision to the referendum question on this matter is requested per bylaws section 408A. Any discussion on this? Frank.
So to be clear, so we have one motion that was passed 6-0. It's already out there. And what this does is changes essentially the first paragraph of that motion.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm fine with it then.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Richard, did you vote?
Yes, I said, I agreed with it.
I'm sorry.
He agrees with me.
You agree. Okay, so 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstained. Okay.
5-0.
Next one is a motion.
Sorry, 501?
Has to be 6.
That's 6.
I'm sorry, 601. Sorry. I can't count today. Yeah, we do. I did get A in all my advanced statistics courses, however. Revision to candidate eligibility referendum question. This motion is to adopt the recommendation of the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee to have council develop the appropriate wording for a referendum to amend the bylaws section 502A to add the following to the criteria for eligibility for candidates for election to the Board of Directors. No corporate entity, including but not limited to a corporation, LLC, partnership, or agency that is listed as the owner of record may have an individual be a candidate for the Board of Directors. This subsection does not apply to trustee or co-trustee. The purpose and effect is to alter the proposed bylaws recommendation pertaining to board candidate qualifications in section 502A to explicitly disqualify owners of corporate entities who own property in Ocean Pines. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I have one question
Yes.
regarding the LLCs. There are several LLCs, as you know, that are in our community. And there are several LLCs that are owned by husband and wife, and that's pretty much it. You know, how are we to say what their allegiance is to the corporation or to Ocean Pines? I find that we're disenfranchising some of our folks in with that. And I did some research, and there was a number of those LLCs that are just in husband and wife. So how can we make that judgment with that as far as where their loyalty lies? I mean, we're making a presumption, and that's kind of how I feel about this piece on the LLC portion of this, because of that. And they also have their LLCs as with folks with trusts for tax reasons. And so I do have a little bit of an issue with that, on that, of how we can justify or how we can say as board members where somebody's loyalty is when we may not know those individuals.
I say we kind of do that already. I had to give up working for Ocean Pines as an employee because it was seen as a conflict of interest, a director and an employee. So I think as a board, we have to act in good faith and in the best interest of the HOA as a whole. And we have to make sure that we avoid any conflict of interest and even the bad optics of a conflict of interest. So I say we already do it.
Okay, I'm going to address myself to the conflict, the inherent conflict concept being just different in the case of trusts versus corporations. Trusts are tax shelters that shelter the value of the property from taxation. And usually that occurs when ownership of property passes through an inheritance process. And so the person property has a shelter with respect to this trustee relationship. Corporate entities provide tax shelters on profits derived from the use of the property, not the value of the property, but the use of the property to generate income. And that is where the conflict lies. I can't say that I know for certain that there is no one in Ocean Pines who has their property owned by an LLC that is owned by homeowners such as myself and my husband. But I can't conceive of a need for a tax shelter. Josh, we have a lot of background noise coming in here. I can't see the need for that kind of tax shelter. The data that was discussed in the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee regarding LLCs in Ocean Pines was that virtually all of the LLCs in Ocean Pines were operating as rentals, either most of them short-term, some long-term. There was no data that supported LLC ownership of property in Ocean Pines that did not have that kind of a relationship. And so I think, as Amy said, we are assuming conflicts, and maybe we are assuming some conflicts with individuals who own LLCs that own property in Ocean Pines, that is for the purposes of sheltering income derived from the use of that property. But that's where the conflict lies. So at any rate, that's my position. Yes.
Let me see if I can understand this from both the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee point of view and from Rick's point of view. Okay, so let's say you have a husband and wife team in a highly volatile professional situation like commodities trading. And therefore they put their home in an LLC to protect it against something that happens in their business. Okay, so if I understand your point of view, Rick, what you're really saying is in that case, there's really no difference between a trustee, a deed held in joint tenancy, or the LLC, because you have basically a husband and a wife, or some cohabitation arrangement and are just protecting their property because of their employment field. If I understand the point of the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, they're saying there are multi-owner LLCs that could be akin to a VRBO, an Airbnb situation where you'd be opening up to 100 members of the LLC, any one of which could run for the board. Is that the bylaws? And I think that's the bylaws. So I just ask, because the resolution was put forth, is there a way to bridge this by saying it would be like a 2-member LLC? Because the minute you get into a 3-member LLC or a 4-member or a 10-member LLC, then you get into what the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee is afraid of, and that is a conflict between corporate responsibilities. Whereas a 2-member LLC, that's 2 people that have a cohabitation or marriage agreement, it's no different than really a joint tenancy deed. Is there a way to bridge that?
Yeah, I think, Frank, that you have identified a type of LLC arrangement that is, protection of your property from, something that might happen in your business. But that doesn't, I think it's an unfair assumption that a couple, 2 people may own a piece of property here that they own for the purposes of a VRBO, for the purposes of not contracting with VRBO, but running their own rental business for their property. And so their interest is in protecting the income of that corporation, which is not in line with the interests of homeowners who are operating their homes as places to live.
I didn't make myself clear. See, there are occupations where you come up with and you really expose yourself to tremendous liability. So one way in that occupation is that I know of in commodities training, to protect your personal property, is to put your house in a different ownership.
Right, yeah, I understand that distinction.
So that I would understand, but the LLC, I understand the point of view from the Bylaws Committee of where you could have an LLC that has 100 members and you have 100 people that would think they're.
But even if it's only 2 members, it doesn't matter how many members. If their interest is in making decisions that are going to benefit their objective of maximizing profit from their property, that is in conflict with the ownership of somebody like you or me who operate our home as a home, our property as our home.
Okay.
Suspend Robert's rules.
Advisory committee consideration did not go into what Frank really is discussing, how many people would be eligible. The corporation, the LLC, and even the partnership are putting the entity between themselves and the property, between the entity between themselves and the property. And that in itself is the conflict of interest.
Okay.
The principals are not directly responsible to the association. That's where the conflict of interest is. I think I'm accurately portraying that as the position of the committee.
Yes. Reinstate Robert's rules, Larry.
Yeah, Resolution BO5 deals with conflicts of interest. And I'm reading from BO5. No director, officer, employee, or committee member of the association shall recommend a course of action or make a decision on behalf of the association with respect to any matter in which he has or hopes to have a direct or indirect financial interest, or which a family member or employer other than the association has hopes to have financial interest. Now, the definition of a matter includes, but is not limited to, a purchase, a contract, any action such as a resolution of approval or of a contract or purchase, a personnel action or disposal of association assets. And financial interest is defined as includes but is not limited to a partial or total ownership of a company, partnership, or proprietorship involved in a matter. the difference between a trust and a corporation, there's a lot of legal differences. I think Jim would agree. And I think there is an inherent conflict of interest of a board member who would be the owner of a property that is under an LLC. So.
Amy?
In my research, there's plenty of HOAs that do not allow this, and even whole states, Florida and Texas, that say it's not a good idea. There's some go as far as saying it has to be a resident homeowner, that they actually have to be living there. So I don't see anything wrong with this motion.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
One. Okay. Next is motion for.
What was the vote?
It was
Six
six
to
in
one.
favor and one opposed. Okay, so then we have one more revision of bylaws, section 502A, to add a paragraph for employee. This motion is to have council develop the appropriate wording for a referendum to revise bylaws, section 502A, adding a paragraph 4 to read as follows. Article 5, section 502, candidates for election. A, eligibility. 4, no member shall be a candidate for election as a director if he or she is an employee of the association as of the date the candidate's application is submitted for consideration by the secretary. Purpose and effect, it takes an existing requirement and places it in a paragraph by itself. This is a new paragraph which contains a requirement that was previously contained in the original 502A, which contains several separate criteria. This is to achieve the goal of having each criterion be standalone in the resolution. This was overlooked in the meeting on February 7th, where we discussed these. Second, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion of this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this passes. Next are the appointments and search committee. We have Sherry Clifford. This is an first term application.
Josh,
Excuse me?
I was telling Josh to turn the page.
Okay. The endorsement of this by the committee chairperson says, I interviewed Sherry and fully endorse her appointment. Her technology experience will help achieve our goals. I did endorse this applicant as having skills, attitudes to give sound advice to the board on this and to candidates. All in favor of this candidate, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Have any discussion?
Okay, discussion, sorry. Do you have?
Yeah, I actually have two questions, and it kind of applies to all three of the candidates. So when I read the endorsement, it says that in your case, it says, you endorse that this person has the skills and attitude to give sound advice. So that implies to me that there was some criteria that was used in order to determine that. So my first question is, I'd like to know what that criteria is. And the second one is that I'm interested in how you gathered that criteria. Was it an interview? Was it have the individual fill out a questionnaire? Or did you just have a discussion with the committee chair, who, by the way, made the endorsement? I'm just sort of interested in how you were able to create a statement that says you agree and endorse because of the skills and attitude that this person has.
And so I did not have a list of criteria. What I did do was look at the information that the candidate submitted. In this case, I also had a conversation with this candidate and was able to ascertain, I think in particular, the technology experience is going to be very beneficial to that in terms of searching, using technology as a vehicle for searching for candidates. And then, the attitude that she conveyed in her application and in the conversation that I had with her. The conversation, by the way, had nothing to do with this application. It was outside of that. Any other discussion of this application?
Yeah.
Yes.
To Doug's point, actually, there were three very good points that have been made. The audience, from Tom, and from the board here. So when the committee applications come up, and the committee chair thinks that the person is fit for the committee, okay, makes the criteria. And we look at their recommendation or don't take their recommendation. It is no reflection on the committee chair, okay? I mean, I personally have nominated Tom to fill positions on this board. I personally have voted for him when he was nominated to be on this board, and I worked with him on this board. He is a person of impeccable integrity and community service, and I value that. I may vote different than he sees because of information that I have. And with all due respect, I understand that people vote. And this is just so you understand where I'm coming out on this thing, because there may be a candidate that I don't vote for. When you're elected to this board, the 6 people up here that greet you owe you every professional courtesy and respect, to listen to you, to treat you with professionalism, and to review any suggestion you make with due consideration. But if you don't have that vote and you're not sitting up here, you don't get exactly the same thing, and other issues can come into play. So I understand where everybody's coming from and respect them. That doesn't necessarily mean I'll follow.
Okay, so all in favor of this application? Any opposed? And then the next one is Stuart Lakernick. This endorsement from the committee chairperson says, I fully support Stuart's appointment. He is outgoing and will encourage residents to run for the board. He also spoke to this application earlier. I did not endorse this applicant as having skills and attitudes that inspire confidence in the quality of advice to be given. And this is not a political, based on anything having to do with political statements or statements made in public. It has to do with failure to follow the constraints on candidates when Mr. Lakernick was running for the board. And his failure to follow those constraints does not inspire confidence in his ability to give good advice to candidates who will run in the future. Yes.
So as again, a follow-up to the previous 3 things I asked about with regard to the criteria that was used and how you gathered it. So now in this case, you did have a set of criteria that you used in order to determine that this individual do not endorse this applicant as having the skills and attitudes.
I did not have a
point of order. Point of order. Point of order. Is there a motion, or are you putting forth a motion here, or are you not?
I am not.
Then there's no discussion needed.
Point of order.
Yes.
When a topic comes up for discussion, whether it becomes a motion or not, it can be discussed between the members of the board.
Okay, I will respond to your comment about criteria. I will say what I said before.
Plus, it's not an attack.
Yeah.
It's an attempt to get some information.
Okay.
As I said in the previous meeting, that this information gets out in public, it may set the criteria for those who would subsequently want to come up and apply for a committee membership, knowing that there is a certain sentiment about particulars before they apply. And they might just go, you know what, I had said individual didn't pass muster, so maybe I don't apply. Okay, and those kinds of things. So I'm just curious as to what led you to believe that said individual was, didn't have the skills and attitude. And I'd like you to be specific.
And that's,
sure.
I was just specific.
I mean, what was
there was a violation of.
What was the violation, I guess?
The violation was the constraint against distributing literature on Ocean Pines property during their previous election.
Restraints against delivering. Okay.
What was that?
I mean, I don't know that that's factual, but
Well, it is.
take your word. I was never reported publicly, so I don't know, so.
So this subject is,
The election committee.
this subject is closed.
Can I make a comment? May I make a comment? May I make a comment? I can't hear. Can I make a comment? I can't hear. I can't hear anything.
Josh.
Josh, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Am I speaking up enough for you, Josh?
Yes.
Okay.
The whole thing was muted for some reason. I don't know what happened.
Okay. So Richard, can you hear now?
Yes, I was asking if I can make a comment, please.
Okay. And that subject is closed and we've moved on to the next applicant.
So I can't make a
We're
comment
discussing Michelle Stewart. And so having reviewed her application materials, I endorse this applicant as having skills and attitudes that will support sound advice to candidates and for her work on this committee. All those in favor of this candidate, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Final is for strategic planning. We have Vicki Breckenroad. The endorsement says, I interviewed and approved.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, let's answer Joe.
Did you announce, maybe I missed it, did you announce the vote on Michelle Stewart?
That was unanimous in favor.
I didn't see Rick move, but maybe he said so. Okay.
Okay.
Voted down.
Okay. And the second endorsement came from the chair, the liaison endorsed this candidate. And so I am deferring to the wisdom of those two and nominating this individual. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the next meeting is April 20th at 11 a.m. here. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.